Chapter 1760. Z long pondered for a while before replying, The immortal source liquid is the condensation of the essence of the immortal tree's leaves over countless years. For the immortal source liquid, regrowing a severed limb is nothing more than a waste of talent. It is a natural pills capable of bringing one back from the dead. Bringing one back from the dead? Zedong's face was filled with shock. If this trivial do has such a miraculous effect, then the immortal tree itself, if I can obtain the immortal tree and refine it, I can obtain an immortal and indestructible body and live as long as the heavens themselves. What? Zedong was truly shocked this time. Even as the young master of Purple Star, he could not help feeling shocked, unable to believe these words if they were not coming from his father's mouth. If I can obtain an endless lifespan, then your father will achieve something unprecedented. At that time, I will surpass the Origin King realm and peer into the mysteries of the realm of the great emperors. When Zilong said this, his whole body was filled with excitement and fanaticism. Zedong stared at his father in a daze. He had not seen such an expression on his father's face for a long time, so he could imagine how great the temptation of the immortal tree was to his father. Father, is this information only known to our Purple Star? Zedong asked again. Zilong shook his head, a look of dread appearing on his face. I am not certain about others, but Hengluo Chamber of Commerce definitely knows about the existence of the immortal tree because 2,000 years ago, your great-uncle and the previous president of Hengluo Chamber of Commerce entered together. So, this time, that old fart Ni Guang is likely also eyeing the immortal tree. Zedong could not help but frown as he asked suspiciously, if that's the case, why don't you gather more masters? Zilong faintly smiled. This kind of matter isn't something that can be handled with more people. Moreover, there is only one immortal tree. When the time comes, what if we succeed? Who will obtain it? In front of such a supreme treasure, only you can trust yourself, everyone else is your enemy. Zedong pondered for a moment before nodding. This child understands. Good, you are still young. There's still a long way to go. Father brought you here this time to temper you and expose you to some unimaginable dangers as soon as possible. This will be of great benefit to your future growth. I hope you won't disappoint me. This child will do his best. Zedong said solemnly. As the sect master of Purple Star, Zilong had countless children, but the one he favored the most was still Zedong. Among his countless children, only this child stood out. Of course, he had to raise him well. Zedong was also well aware of this, so he had worked even harder these past few years, not daring to slack off in his cultivation. Entering the severed world this time was extremely dangerous, but it was also a good test. As long as he passed this test, his position in Purple Star would be unshakable from now on. Zedong secretly clenched his fists and decided to perform well this time. At the same time, somewhere far away, Yang Kai's group of 4, led by Ni Guang, was advancing through the severed world. Along the way, they did not encounter any great dangers. The exiled grounds did not seem to live up to its name either. However, Ni Guang took out something that Yang Kai was particularly interested in. It was an artifact similar to a communication artifact, but it was somewhat different because there was a needle-like object in the center of this artifact. Ni Guang had taken it out 2 hours ago. He had been holding it in his hand all this time, shaking it from side to side from time to time. As it shook, the needle would occasionally undergo some subtle changes. Every time this happened, Ni Guang would change direction and move in a different direction. Luo Lan was confused by this sight, not knowing what kind of magical effect this artifact had. She secretly guessed that this thing was probably able to avoid some kind of danger, but this was related to someone else's privacy, so she didn't ask and simply kept it to herself. However, Yang Kai was quite surprised, because he found that this artifact could actually detect the location of some hidden void cracks. Whenever the needle on this artifact pointed in a certain direction, Yang Kai could feel obscure space force fluctuations from that direction, but Ni Guang was always able to avoid them in advance. This was obviously a special artifact that had been refined to deal with entering the severed world. The person who had refined it had most likely cultivated the Tao of space. Yang Kai secretly guessed, After all, Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce was a big force with many talented people, so it was only natural that some of them had cultivated the Tao of space. However, Yang Kai was keenly able to infer from the reaction of this artifact that its creator's attainments in the Tao of space were far inferior to his own. Because this artifact could not detect all hidden void cracks. Even if there were some void cracks several dozen meters away from the group, it would not respond, but Yang Kai could clearly perceive them. Every time this happened, he would be on tenterhooks, afraid that Ni Guang would rush over. Fortunately, they had not encountered any danger along the way, so Yang Kai did not need to expose his secret to remind Ni Guang to change their route. From time to time, there would be rips in the void, visible to the naked eye. This kind of thing was like a scar in the sky, forever hanging above the void, adding a dangerous atmosphere to the severed world. As they moved forward, whether it was obvious or hidden void cracks, the number of them increased. Yang Kai and the others even saw a heavenly chasm-like crack in the void, and from that crack came a terrifying and strange fluctuation. No one knew what was on the other side of that crack. When he saw this crack, Yang Kai's face was filled with eagerness. He clearly felt that this huge void crack was likely to contain what he needed, the space spirit crystal that had been nurtured in the void, or the insight into the Tao of space that he longed for. He felt that if he rushed in, he would definitely reap great benefits. Unfortunately, he was now acting with Ni Guang and the others, so he did not rashly leave the group and could only pass by this crack. In any case, there were many such opportunities in the severed world, so there was no need to rush. Ni Guang, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped and turned his head in a certain direction, letting out a cry of surprise. Following the direction he was looking, the other three immediately saw a person lying on the ground 1,000 meters away. "This is..." Luo Lan whispered, "This person's clothes seem a bit familiar. Is he one of the people who came in with us before?" "It seems so." Ni Guang's expression became solemn as he released his divine sense to investigate, his expression changing slightly, but he seems to be dead. Luo Lan's pretty face paled. Among the cultivator who entered the severed world before, except for Yang Kai, Shuiyu, and Zidong, the rest were all origin kings, none of them worse than her. But after just a few hours, she actually found a corpse here. It was difficult to imagine what kind of attack this person had suffered. With his powerful origin king realm cultivation, he had actually died here. What's more, from the looks of the surroundings, this person had not experienced any kind of battle at all. It was as if he had been ambushed and killed instantly by something powerful. If she had been in his shoes, Luo Lan felt that her fate would not have been any better. She began to celebrate her good luck. "Should we go and take a look?" Shuiyu pondered for a moment before pointing in the direction of the corpse. There seems to be something next to his body. There was no need for her to remind them, as everyone noticed that there was indeed something next to this Origin King Realm Master's corpse. It was a small flower that resembled a coxcomb that grew straight out of the ground. Even from 1,000 meters away, everyone could smell a fragrant scent drifting over from it. This aura made people feel relaxed and happy, and it could not help but ease the tension in everyone's hearts. "What kind of spirit grass is this? Do any of you recognize it?" Ni Guang turned his head and asked. Luo Lan shook her head awkwardly while Shuiyu also expressed that she did not know. Even the Origin King grade alchemist, Yang Kai, was confused. He had never seen this kind of spirit flower before. Logically speaking, the true alchemy enlightenment scripture he obtained in the Emperor Garden not only contained countless lost pill recipes but also detailed records of countless exotic flowers and herbs. It could be said that the scripture contained almost everything. In terms of understanding of herbs, Yang Kai was confident that he was not inferior to anyone in the Star Territory. However, Yang Kai had not seen any similar records in the true alchemy enlightenment scripture. Ni Guang frowned and pondered for a moment before saying, "I'll go take a look, all of you stay here and don't move." Yang Kai was confident in his ability and didn't want to give up on this opportunity. Regardless of what kind of spirit grass the spirit flower was, at least there was an Origin King Realm Master's corpse nearby. As long as he could obtain his space ring, it would be a good harvest. "Do you want this mistress to go with you?" Luo Lan asked. Guang glanced at her and nodded. Then you be careful. This mistress will, Luo Lan responded with a smile before she and Guang slowly approached the corpse. Yang Kai and Shui Yu stood in place, nervously paying attention to the situation. The two quickly closed the distance of more than 1,000 meters, but to everyone's surprise, even when Guang and Luo Lan approached the corpse, there was no danger. Guang had a puzzled look on his face. He lowered his head to look at the corpse and exclaimed in a low voice, "This man was killed by a sneak attack from behind. There are 2 bite marks on the back of his neck. It seems to be a snake-type demon beast, and it's highly poisonous." Luo Lan nodded as she also noticed this. Because this corpse was in a face-down position, the situation on the back of his neck was clear at a glance. It was easy to imagine that this person had been caught off guard and bitten on the back of his neck, causing him to fall to the ground and die immediately. This was simply a lethal poison that could kill at the sight of blood. Even an Origin King would not be able to resist it. "Elder Luo, I'll have to trouble you to take this corpse with you. I'll pick up that spirit flower," Guang ordered. "Okay." Luo Lan nodded, not taking this matter lightly. Instead of directly touching the corpse with her hand, she sent out a wisp of Saint Qi to wrap it up and quickly withdraw. Chapter 1761. Luo Lan's movements were careful and swift. Without knowing what kind of dangers were hidden in that place, she didn't dare to stay there for long. While Luo Lan wrapped up the Origin King Realm Master's corpse and retreated, Guang also reached out to grab the coxcomb-like spirit flower. But at that moment, a sudden change occurred. Somewhere behind Guang, the originally flat ground suddenly bulged up and a flat, triangular snake head poked out from the ground, aimed towards Guang's neck, and launched a lightning-fast attack. The whole process was too fast for the eyes to take in, and there were no signs at all. When the snake head drilled out of the ground and attacked Guang, Shui Yu's beautiful face turned pale as she cried out in alarm, "Uncle be careful." As soon as her voice fell, the snake head bit down on Guang's neck. Shui Yu's face changed drastically. Seeing this scene, how could she not understand how the Origin King Realm Master from before had died? Clearly, just like Guang, the moment his attention was attracted by the coxcomb-like spirit flower, the snake monster beast hiding behind him had launched a fatal sneak attack. She did not know if Guang could cope. After all, judging from the current situation, Guang had also been caught. However, Guang was Guang after all. Not to mention his profound cultivation, how could he not be prepared when he knew that this place was dangerous? As such, while preparing to collect the spirit flower, Guang had been secretly vigilant to guard against the unexpected, paying particular attention to protecting the back of his neck. This sneak attack was destined to fail. Ding! A crisp sound rang out, and a halo of energy suddenly appeared around Guang's neck. Under this attack, Guang's entire body seemed to have been hit by a powerful force, and he was suddenly sent flying forward. Letting out a low shout, Guang forcibly twisted his body midair and waved his hand behind him, not forgetting to grab the spirit flower with his other hand. The backhand strike of a second-order Origin King was not to be underestimated. The ferocious force knocked the snake's head back, and it was unable to attack again. However, the moment Guang grabbed the spirit flower, his expression changed drastically. He felt a different tactile sensation from the spirit flower. It was definitely not the feeling of gathering spirit herbs. Instead, it was as if he had grabbed onto something cold and slippery, as if he had grabbed onto something alive. He decisively let go. Right at this moment, the spirit flower that was exuding a sweet fragrance suddenly changed, and it suddenly emerged from the ground. The entire flower emitted a green light and pierced into Guang's palm. In an instant, that area was filled with sand and stones, and from time to time, Guang's cold snort and the hissing sound of a spirit snake hissing could be heard. A moment later, Guang jumped out of the battle circle and stood in the air. His expression was extremely solemn. As for Yang Kai and the others, when they looked over, they were also surprised. As the dust settled, they finally understood what the trap in front of them was all about. At the place where the coxcomb-like spirit flower used to be, There was no longer any spirit flower. There was only an earth-yellow demon snake that was about 30 feet long and as thick as an infant's arm. It was coiled up. It was constantly flicking its forked tongue. This monster snake did not give off the slightest discernible aura. If one did not look at it with the naked eye, they would not be able to discover its existence at all. It was as if it was not a living creature. On its tail, there was a coxcomb-like sarcoma. The spirit flower that everyone had seen before was actually this monster hiding its body underground while leaving its tail above the ground. This was an illusion created by it. Anyone who tried to touch the spirit flower was bound to be attacked by it. Tail-crowned snake? Enai Guang's eyes lit up as he called out the name of this monster beast. Fortunately, he was knowledgeable and held a high position in Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, allowing him to come into contact with many ancient books. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to recognize this strange monster beast that had only existed for a very long time. Tail-crowned snake? Luo Lan frowned. Looking at Enai Guang with some admiration, she said, "This mistress has never heard of so many extinct existences in the severed world." The black shadow they had encountered in the underground gully before was also unknown to them, only feeling that it was somewhat similar to a Yin soul. However, this tail-crowned snake was completely different. The other three people had never even heard of it before. The severed world opened up for them like a strange world that they had never come into contact with before. Enai Guang grinned. "Don't worry, although the tail-crowned snake is dangerous, its strength isn't very high. Its strength lies in its ability to conceal itself and launch sneak attacks. Since its sneak attack failed, it can only serve as this old master's prey." Saying so, he rushed straight towards the tail-crowned snake. He didn't use any powerful killing moves, he just approached the tail-crowned snake, his hands like claws, and started to fight with the tail-crowned snake. Yang Kai observed silently and found that this monster beast only had a strength of around the 9th order. In front of Enai Guang, such a creature naturally couldn't pose any threat. Even though it possessed an ancient bloodline, after 10 breaths of time, the tail-crowned snake that had leapt up from the ground and was about to bite Enai Guang was caught by him. Immediately, Enai Guang flicked his wrist like a whip and poured his Saint Chi fiercely into the snake's body. Within the long body of the tail-crowned snake, a series of crisp cracking sounds could be heard. Then, its straight body fell limply to the ground, directly becoming a corpse. Enai Guang stretched out his hand and flicked his finger towards the snake's belly, pulling out an oval-shaped, longan-sized, green snake gallbladder, opening his mouth and swallowing it before letting out a cheerful laugh. Yang Kai didn't know what kind of magical effects the tail-crowned snake's gallbladder had, but seeing Enai Guang's happy expression, it was likely to be of great benefit to him. After doing all this, Enai Guang casually threw the tail-crowned snake's body to the side and said lightly, "This monster beast does not have a monster core. The most valuable thing on its body is its gallbladder. In ancient times, if a cultivator took it for a long time, it was said that they would be immune to hundreds of poisons. Unfortunately, there is only one, but it's better than nothing." Saying so, he walked back to the corpse Luo Lan had picked up, lowered his head, and sighed, It really is Tong Lei." He was obviously referring to the name of the corpse in front of him. "Does Senior and I know him?" Luo Lan asked. Enai Guang nodded slightly. "We've met once. Back then he made a deal with this old master, but that was many years ago. I never expected that he would actually die in the mouth of a 9th order monster beast. In this kind of place, one really can't be careless. In the outside world, how could an Origin King Realm Master die under the attack of a 9th order monster beast? A 9th order monster beast was equivalent to an Origin returning realm cultivator. Once an Origin King entered the territory of an Origin King, a 9th order monster beast would not even be able to approach, but in this severed world, a 9th order monster beast could not be underestimated. "Shuiyu, take off this ring," Enai Guang ordered lightly. Shuiyu nodded, bent down, and took off the space ring of the Origin King named Tong Lei, not even bothering to check what was inside before putting it away. Yang Kai and Luo Lan did not say anything. Yang Kai's strength was too low and he had not contributed much in this matter, so naturally he was not qualified to get a share of the spoils. As for Luo Lan, and Ai Guang had already informed her before that even if she followed him, he could not guarantee that she would gain anything, so Luo Lan could not blame him for his current actions. Let's go, we must be careful from now on. Don't approach anything you find strange, and Ai Guang exhorted before preparing to leave. Everyone, please wait a moment. Yang Kai suddenly seemed to think of something and, while speaking, stretched out his hand and flicked a golden blood thread towards the tail-crowned snake's corpse on the ground. The three of them stood in place and watched this scene strangely, not knowing what Yang Kai was going to do. The golden blood thread instantly sank into the tail-crowned snake's body, and immediately afterwards, a squirming sound came from inside. The tail-crowned snake's corpse seemed to have been sucked dry by something and its flesh quickly withered, leaving behind only its skin. A moment later, the golden blood thread exuding a golden and red light returned to Yang Kai's hand. Ai Guang looked at the golden blood thread in Yang Kai's hand thoughtfully and asked in surprise, "Boy, is this thing a secret technique, or an artifact?" He felt a strange fluctuation from the golden blood thread. The golden blood thread looked like an artifact, but it exuded an extremely rich vitality, as if it was alive, giving it an extremely strange appearance. It's something between a secret technique and an artifact. Yang Kai smiled lightly and explained casually. The golden blood thread was condensed from the essence of his own golden blood. Strictly speaking, it was a kind of secret technique, but it also had the properties of an artifact and could be retracted and used repeatedly, making it difficult to define. Strange. Ai Guang slowly shook his head. He had lived for so many years but had never seen such a strange secret technique, but the world was so big that nothing was too strange, so he didn't delve too deeply into it. After all, although this golden blood thread looked powerful, it couldn't cause him any harm. Thinking about it for a moment, he asked, "Since this thing can absorb the essence of the tail-crowned snake's flesh, what kind of changes can it undergo?" "It can." Yang Kai grinned, and with a single thought, the golden blood thread wrapped around his hand suddenly twisted and transformed into the appearance of a tail-crowned snake. The tail-crowned snake transformed from the golden blood thread was exactly the same as the one everyone had seen before, the only difference being its color. A living tail-crowned snake was yellow in color, but the one in Yang Kai's hand was a mixture of gold and red. "You can actually mimic it?" Ai Guang's eyes lit up. "Could it be that your secret technique is now equivalent to a real tail-crowned snake?" "Something like that." Yang Kai nodded, no longer showing off, instead taking back his golden blood thread. Everything he was doing was within the scope of the golden blood thread's transformation technique, the blood beast. A golden blood thread could absorb the essence of a monster beast and transform into the appearance of that monster beast when it was alive. This monster beast was an extremely powerful secret technique. The cultivator who created the golden blood thread secret technique was a genius, but unfortunately, whether it was him or the later cultivator of Demon Blood Temple, none of them were able to carry forward this secret technique because they were unable to condense too many blood threads in their bodies. Even the beautiful temple master of Demon Blood Temple, after exhausting all of her strength and not hesitating to use yang to supplement her yin, had only been able to condense 2 demon blood threads in her body. Chapter 1762. Because of these various reasons, the original version of the golden blood thread secret technique, the demon blood thread secret technique, was very difficult to display in Demon Blood Temple. In particular, its many transformations required the support of a massive number of blood threads. No one in Demon Blood Temple could meet this requirement. It could be said that the cultivator who created this secret technique had only put forward a beautiful idea but was unable to truly perfect it. But Yang Kai was different. This secret technique was simply tailor-made for him. In a sense, as long as Yang Kai had enough golden blood in his body, he could display the full potential of the golden blood thread secret technique to a level that even its creator could not estimate. As for the blood beast secret technique, Yang Kai had only condensed 2 so far. He had condensed them after killing the 2 thunder flame flying lizards of young Master Demonic Eye on Monster Star. The thunder flame flying lizards were just 9th order monster beast and couldn't play much of a role for the current Yang Kai, so he had never used them in battle. Only when the number of blood beasts reached a certain level could they cause considerable damage. 1 or 2 ninth-order monster beast blood beasts would definitely not pose a threat to an Origin King, but if there were dozens or hundreds of them, even an Origin King would have to avoid them. Ninth-order monster beasts were not easy to find, and Yang Kai had never paid much attention to condensing blood beasts, but in this severed world he felt that this was a relatively easy task. This place was simply a paradise for high-order monster beasts, and all of them had ancient bloodlines, making it the best place to condense blood beasts. As such, Yang Kai did not avoid suspicion and directly used his golden blood threads to condense blood beasts. In any case, this was not his biggest trump card, so it didn't matter if it was exposed. Seeing that Yang Kai had taken care of everything properly, Ni Guang nodded again and did not say anything, simply taking out the artifact that could detect void cracks and leading the way. The severed world was filled with dangers, but it was also filled with opportunities. There were many extinct spirit flowers and rare grasses here, as well as countless ancient monster beasts that had long been lost in the long river of history. Under the nourishment of the special world principles of the severed world, they continued to reproduce and survive. Although there were 2 third-order Origin returning Realm Masters in this group of 4, lowering the average combat power of the team, overall, the strength of Yang Kai's group was unquestionable. Along the way to the Medicine Valley, there were occasional gains. Just as Yang Kai had expected, there were all kinds of high-level monster beast here. Although Yang Kai dared not say that 9th stage monster beast could be found everywhere, he had not seen one below 8th stage since he entered. The 4 of them even encountered 2 10th grade monster beast. These 2 10th grade monster beasts emitted an extremely powerful aura. Even Ni Guang was afraid of one of them and could only avoid it from afar. They didn't dare to provoke it rashly, but the other one met with great misfortune and was killed by the 4 of them together. Every monster beast that was killed had valuable materials on it, such as its monster core, gallbladder, claws, and teeth. All of these materials were taken away by Ni Guang and Shuiyu. After all, a 9th or 10th grade monster beast's body was already very valuable, so there was no reason to let it go. Luo Lan also received some monster beast materials as spoils of war. Yang Kai, on the other hand, didn't ask for anything else, just constantly using his golden blood threads to absorb the essence of the monster beast's flesh and blood to condense his own blood beasts and expand their ranks. In just a few days, Yang Kai's army of blood beasts had grown to the size of a dozen or so. Among these dozen or so blood beasts, there was even the 10th grade monster beast that the 4 of them had killed together, the Steel Flame Ghost Spider. This monster beast's body was extremely tough and was surrounded by a pale white spirit flame that was capable of burning anything in its path. An Origin returning realm cultivator would have died upon contact with it, and if not for Ni Guang, the other 3 probably wouldn't have been able to kill it. This could be said to be Yang Kai's biggest harvest so far. Except for the Steel Flame Ghost Spider. For example, the Zhu Zhen Bird, Star Emperor Turtle, 8-Eyed Demon Toad, Purple Thunder Sky Leopard, all kinds of ancient monster beasts with different unique bloodlines were taken under Yang Kai's command. It could be said that on the surface, Yang Kai had gained nothing. However, from a fundamental point of view, he had earned more than anyone else. Because what he had gained was an increase in his own strength, while what others had gained was just external help. Transforming external help into strength required another process. After a few days of getting along, Ni Guang and Luo Lan began to feel shocked, because they discovered that Yang Kai's golden blood threads seemed to be inexhaustible. When Yang Kai was dealing with the first tail-crowned snake corpse, Ni Guang didn't pay much attention to it. If it was just a blood beast condensed from a single golden blood thread, he really wouldn't put it in his eyes. But now, the number of blood beasts Yang Kai had collected was enough to shock him. If he released a dozen blood beasts like that, even he would have a headache. And from the looks of it, this was far from Yang Kai's limit. Ni Guang found it hard to imagine what it would be like if Yang Kai gathered a certain number of these strange blood beasts. He finally began to take Yang Kai seriously. Along the way, he would occasionally communicate with Shuiyu with his divine sense, wanting to inquire about Yang Kai's details and whether he could win him over to Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. Shuiyu didn't know much about Yang Kai, so she couldn't give a definite answer for the time being, but she did have the idea of inviting Yang Kai to join them. A few days later, Yang Kai's blood beasts had reached more than 20, and his blood beast army was beginning to take shape. Now that they encountered a monster beast, there was no need for Ni Guang and the others to take action. As soon as Yang Kai's blood beast army was dispatched, it would quickly surround the enemy and beat them to death, causing his gains to snowball. On this day, Ni Guang, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped, frowned, and swept his surroundings with his divine sense. "Uncle Ni, what's wrong?" Shui Yu looked around but didn't find any trace of danger, so she couldn't help asking. "Someone's coming." Ni Guang's eyes suddenly flashed as he turned to a certain direction and quickly said, "They're moving very quickly." Hearing this, everyone's complexion couldn't help changing as they followed his gaze. Soon, Yang Kai and Luo Lan also noticed the movement in that direction. Very far away, there were indeed two auras rapidly approaching, and judging from the other party's aura fluctuations, it was obvious they were Origin King Realm Masters. In fact, it wasn't just one, but two. A moment later, two streams of light appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Whether it was intentional or not, the direction these two people were heading towards was exactly where Yang Kai and the others were stopping. After a while, the distance between the two sides rapidly closed. At this time, Ni Guang also recognized the identities of these two people and his expression became cold as he snorted, "It's actually those two. So it's them." Luo Lan couldn't help paling slightly as a look of dread appeared on her face. Yang Kai also frowned secretly. Before entering this place, Shui Yu had introduced him to the Origin King Realm Masters present at that time, so he also recognized the origins of these two at this moment. Of these two, one was an old man while the other was a middle-aged man, but neither of them was a good person. The old man's name was Kong Fa, and he was an elder of Galaxy Ridge. Galaxy Ridge could be considered a major force in the star field. However, just like another force, Abandoned Lair, it had a notorious reputation. Most of the people gathered in these two great forces were people who committed all manner of evil, and there were also many cultivators who had committed crimes on various cultivation stars who had no choice but to seek refuge with these two great forces. What they liked to do the most was wander around star territory, and whenever they encountered a lone starship, they would rob it. They were the true bandits of star territory. Whether it was Sword Union, Purple Star, or Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce, all of them had suffered many losses at the hands of these two great forces over the years. Many of their long-distance starships had disappeared for no reason, and the accompanying cultivator and materials had all gone missing. Although there was not much evidence to suggest that these two great forces were responsible, everyone understood that the ones who dared to act so unscrupulously were most likely this group of lawless people. The people of Galaxy Ridge and Abandoned Lair were both hated and abandoned by the entire star territory. Simply robbing starships was not a big deal. These two forces even occasionally sent a group of people to some cultivation stars that did not have an Origin King Realm Master to plunder cultivation materials and cultivators, bringing them back to their headquarters to enslave them and humiliate them wantonly. It could be said that Galaxy Ridge and Abandoned Lair were the two biggest tumors in star territory. However, because their forces were not weak, they could not be eradicated. Before this, Shui Yu had warned Yang Kai that Kong Fa, who came from Galaxy Ridge, was not a good person and that if he were to encounter him alone in the future, he must be careful. Because although this person appeared to be kind, in fact, he was extremely vicious and merciless. The middle-aged man who came with Kong Fa was another big tumor in star territory, Su Wei from Abandoned Lair. In Abandoned Lair, he was also an elder-level character. It was rumored that he used to be a cultivator from Purple Star, but for some unknown reason he had defected and fallen into Abandoned Lair. And before he betrayed them, he slaughtered everyone in his own sect, not leaving a single one alive. This incident had shaken all of Purple Star, and Purple Star had dispatched masters to hunt him down, but Su Wei had relied on his superb cultivation to carve out a bloody path and escape into Abandoned Lair. This incident caused Purple Star's face to fall greatly. Many years later, he had established a foothold in Abandoned Lair and taken the position of elder. These two could be said to be birds of a feather, jackals of the same feather. It was unknown how they had joined forces or why they were flying in the direction of Guang. After recognizing these two, Guang not only showed no fear, but instead sneered, "Good, this old master can't act rashly outside, but since you're courting death, this old master will fulfill your wish. Elder Luo, I'll have to ask you to hold back one of them while this old master kills the other before joining you." "Leave it to me." Luo Lan's pretty face went cold. "My sword union has many grievances with these two. Since we've met here, there's no reason to let them go. You two stand back and pay attention to protecting yourselves." Guang ordered Yang Kai and Shuiyu. Yang Kai and Shuiyu nodded at the same time and prepared to evacuate. A battle between 4 origin kings was about to break out, and Yang Kai had no interest in getting involved. Chapter 1763. Just as Yang Kai and Shuiyu were about to quietly withdraw, Kong Fa flew over and shouted, "Is that Senior Ni of Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce?" He obviously recognized Guang, but he did not show any intention of evading and instead greeted him head-on. This scene was very unusual because whether it was Kong Fa or Su Wei, both of them had extremely disreputable backgrounds and their hands were stained with the blood of many Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce cultivators. Under normal circumstances, they would flee upon encountering Guang, so why would they take the initiative to meet him head-on? Guang froze for a moment before his brow furrowed slightly, wondering if the other party was plotting something. At the same time, he secretly gave Luo Lan a look, telling her to be careful as he coldly snorted, "Yes, it is this Ni." Kong Fa was overjoyed and immediately shouted, "Great, please save us, Senior Ni, this Kong will repay you generously in the future." "Save us?" Guang was startled and seemed to realize something, his eyes instantly becoming deep as he looked behind Kong Fa and Su Wei. In the next moment, his face changed drastically as he exclaimed, "Not good." He finally understood what Kong Fa and Su Wei had encountered and why they had taken the initiative to approach him even though they knew he was here. These two were actually being hunted down by a group of ancient divine spirit. At this moment, Yang Kai and the others also noticed this. Since Kong Fa and Su Wei appeared, there had been no disturbance behind them, but the two of them looked very distressed. Obviously, they had experienced a great battle and were slightly injured. At first, Yang Kai was quite puzzled as to what could cause 2 origin kings to suffer such a loss, but when Kong Fa shouted for help, a colorful light suddenly flashed less than 3 kilometers behind him. This light was so dazzling that at first glance, it was impossible to figure out what it was, but upon closer inspection, Yang Kai discovered that it was actually a swarm of butterfly-like insects. These insects fluttered their colorful wings and moved about in an unpredictable manner. Every time they flapped their wings, they would perform a teleportation-like movement, closing the distance between them and Kong Fa and Su Wei. From everyone's perspective, there were at least 1,000 butterfly-like insects chasing after Kong Fa and Su Wei. They gathered into a large group, as ferocious as a tide of bugs, not far behind them. "What is this?" Luo Lan's pretty face paled. Although she didn't recognize what this butterfly-like beast was, seeing how distressed Kong Fa and Su Wei were, she knew it wasn't easy to provoke it. "Illusionary void butterfly." Guang quickly replied, "They're ancient insects that are born with the ability to manipulate space. Their bodies are harder than steel, and they're extremely ferocious. Once they're out, they're like a swarm of locusts." Before he could finish his sentence, behind Kong Fa and Su Wei, a wider range of 5-colored light flashed as more illusionary void butterflies appeared. That scale was more than 1,000, or even more than 10,000. There were at least several tens of thousands of illusionary void butterflies flying towards them. The scene was extremely shocking. Every time they flapped their wings, traces of visible ripples appeared in that expanse of space, and it seemed as if even space was affected. Guang shouted as he quickly pushed his Saint Chi, wrapped Shuiyu in it, turned around, and fled. He was different from Luo Lan. Before entering the Severed World, Guang had made a lot of preparations and knew about the existence of illusionary void butterflies here. He also knew how difficult and ferocious they were, so when he discovered that Kong Fa and Su Wei were being chased by such vicious beasts, Ni Guang no longer hesitated and only wanted to escape. Seeing him like this, how could Yang Kai and Luo Lan not understand the seriousness of the situation and quickly used their secret techniques to escape? Luo Lan was an Origin King Realm Master, so her speed was naturally not slow, and although Yang Kai's cultivation was low, he had many advantages over others. However, Yang Kai had an advantage that many cultivators did not possess. Whether it was his physique or the density of his Saint Chi, Yang Kai was far superior to an ordinary Origin returning Realm Master, so in terms of speed, he was able to keep up with Luo Lan. Senior and I. Kong Fei shouted from behind, I hope Senior and I can help this Kong and Brother Su escape. Ni Guang was furious and shouted without looking back as he fled, Scram! If you dare follow this old master again, I'll take your dog life. Ni Guang was filled with annoyance. After encountering such a situation for no reason, the other party had shamelessly followed behind him, seemingly trying to divert the trouble away from him while constantly shouting for help. If it weren't for Ni Guang also being extremely wary of these illusionary void butterflies, he would have turned around and killed Kong Fei. This was undoubtedly a good opportunity to kill Kong Fei. Is Senior Ni really so unreasonable? Kong Fei's voice suddenly became cold. This old master has nothing to do with you too. Ni Guang coldly snorted. Kong Fei grinned strangely. Since Senior Ni is so unreasonable, don't blame this Kong and Brother Su for being disloyal. Saying so, he and Su Wei exchanged a glance before each of them summoned a secret technique and sent it towards Ni Guang from afar. A burst of energy erupted and a bright light flashed across the sky like a meteor, instantly bombarding Ni Guang's path. Ni Guang could not help pausing as he turned around and shouted angrily, Two bastards, this old master will remember you. Despicable, shameless. Luo Lan also cursed. These two Origin King Realm Masters, who were born in the territory of the Star Field, were both determined to drag Ni Guang and Luo Lan down with them because only in this way could they reduce the pressure on them and escape from the pursuit of these tens of thousands of illusionary void butterflies. This brief pause allowed Kong Fei and Su Wei to quickly close the distance between them while the illusionary void butterflies behind them were also getting closer and closer. After cursing, Ni Guang did not dare to linger at all and did not even have time to counterattack, continuing to flee with Xueyu. Yang Kai's face also became gloomy as he realized that the situation this time was far from good. According to the current situation, it was only a matter of time before Ni Guang and Luo Lan were involved. Once these two were entangled by the illusionary void butterflies, with the power displayed by these monster beasts, Yang Kai and Xueyu would be doomed. What's more, there was also Kong Fei and Su Wei, these two insidious and cunning people, stirring up trouble, making the situation even more confusing. Senior Ni, since things have gotten to this point, why don't we all join forces to expel these monster beasts first? Seeing that his treacherous plan had succeeded, Kong Fei changed his previous pleading expression and actually began to cooperate with Ni Guang. Ni Guang's face was gloomy and he did not speak, only glancing over at Xueyu with some worry. With his powerful second-order Origin King cultivation, he was not too afraid of these illusionary void butterflies. Even if he was surrounded, he was 80% sure he could escape, but if he had to bring Xueyu along, the situation would be different. Thinking so, he suddenly sent a divine sense message to Xueyu. If we are separated, you must pay attention to protect yourself. Xueyu nodded imperceptibly. At that moment, Kong Fei and Su Wei used their secret techniques again to delay Ni Guang and Luo Lan. In order to drag these two Origin Kings down with them, Kong Fei and Su Wei had obviously gone all out, using their strongest attacks right off the bat. By the time Ni Guang and Luo Lan resolved this, Kong Fei and Su Wei were already less than 300 meters away from the group, and the countless illusionary void butterflies chasing them were also closing in. This old master swears that one day, I will grind your bones to dust. Ni Guang saw that he could no longer escape, so he waved his hand and pushed Xueyu away before turning around and roaring. Why is Senior Ni so angry? Let's get through this first, Kong Fei said bitterly. Kong Fei laughed bitterly, but before he could finish speaking, his expression changed. This was because Ni Guang had directly attacked him. Kong Fei immediately let out a strange cry as he stretched out his hand and summoned a blood-red shield to protect himself. Asterisk Kong. Asterisk with a loud explosion, the violent attack hit the shield and caused it to glow red. Although it managed to resist Ni Guang's hasty blow, the aftershock still sent Kong Fei flying backwards. Under Kong Fei's horrified gaze, he fell directly into the encirclement of countless illusionary void butterflies. The 5-colored butterfly phantoms flew out in all directions and Kong Fei's figure quickly disappeared from the encirclement, followed by a burst of screams and violent energy fluctuations. A moment later, a figure shot up into the sky. Naturally, it was Kong Fei who had just managed to escape. However, in this short period of time, Kong Fei had been seriously injured. He was covered in blood and even half of his nose seemed to be missing. His face was also pockmarked, as if it had been corroded, giving him an extremely terrifying appearance. It was obvious how terrifying these illusionary void butterflies were. Countless illusionary void butterflies gathered together and followed closely behind, forming a 5-colored pillar of light that shot up into the sky, seemingly determined to kill all of them. Kong Fei reaped what he had sown and was now in a bad situation. Ni Guang and Luo Lan, who had been dragged into this by him, also wore nervous looks as they summoned their own defensive artifacts and used their secret techniques to attack the surrounding illusionary void butterflies. Asterisk ding ding dang dang. Asterisk the attacks of the Origin King Realm Masters landed on the illusionary void butterflies and produced a series of metallic clangs. A large number of illusionary void butterflies fell from the sky and died, but more of their companions continued to rush forward. The place where the two of them stood was now completely surrounded. Su Wei, who had been silent all this time, was also in a similar situation. The 4 Origin Kings could only fight on their own for a while and try to protect themselves. Shui Yu, who had been pushed out by Ni Guang before, had now joined up with Yang Kai. She knew that in such a situation, only by joining forces with Yang Kai could they hope to survive. Shui Yu summoned a bracelet artifact that exuded powerful energy fluctuations. Once this artifact was activated, it transformed into 10, 10, and then 100. In a very short time, the entire world seemed to be filled with the phantom image of this bracelet. This was obviously an Origin King grade artifact. With Shui Yu's identity and status, it was natural for her to have an Origin King grade artifact. It would be strange if she did not have one. However, her cultivation was not high enough, so even if she had an Origin King grade artifact, it was only Origin King grade low rank. Under the urging of Shui Yu's Saint Qi, the countless bracelet phantoms buzzed and shot out like arrows from a bow, instantly blocking the onslaught of the illusionary void butterflies. From time to time, dead illusionary void butterflies would fall from the sky. However, Shui Yu was not happy at all and instead exclaimed in shock, "These things have strong defenses." Chapter 1764. An Origin King grade artifact was extremely powerful, and Shui Yu was not an ordinary cultivator, so her strength was quite high. Even so, her attacks were unable to kill all the illusionary void butterflies, demonstrating just how terrifying the defenses of these insects were. At the same time as Shui Yu took action, Yang Kai also took action. With a single thought, more than 20 golden blood threads exuding golden and red light appeared and transformed into the appearance of blood beasts. Thunder flame flying lizards, tail crown snakes, steel flame ghost spiders, Zhujian birds, star emperor turtles, 8-eyed demon toads, purple thunder sky leopards. As soon as these blood beasts appeared, they spread out and surrounded Yang Kai and Shui Yu, forming a strong protective circle. Immediately, under the control of Yang Kai's divine sense, these blood beasts used various methods to attack the surrounding illusionary void butterflies. The blood beasts had inherited most of the abilities of these monster beasts when they were alive, and although they needed to be controlled, making them somewhat inflexible, they were undoubtedly excellent helpers at this time. As soon as the 20 or so blood beasts of different sizes moved out, they instantly formed an impregnable defense, greatly reducing the pressure on Yang Kai and Shui Yu. Asterisk weng weng weng. The sound of the illusionary void butterflies flapping their wings rang out incessantly as they charged forward without fear of death, as if they had no fear of death and only had an instinct to kill the living. The blood beasts, which exuded strong blood aura fluctuations, became the best targets to attract the illusionary void butterflies. Yang Kai and Xueyu were in the middle, so for a time, they were safe. Seeing this, Xueyu could not help feeling overjoyed and quickly began manipulating her artifacts to kill the illusionary void butterflies. Yang Kai did not remain idle either. The remaining several dozen golden blood threads shot out and crisscrossed through the void, cutting one illusionary void butterfly after another in half. However, as time passed, Yang Kai found that the situation had not improved. The 4 Origin Kings were still fighting on their own, surrounded by countless illusionary void butterflies. The corpses of the illusionary void butterflies piled up on the ground, forming a thick layer. Yang Kai's brow furrowed. The current situation made Yang Kai realize that it was impossible to kill all these illusionary void butterflies. If they continued to fight like this, Yang Kai's group would eventually run out of strength and be slaughtered by these illusionary void butterflies. As for his 20 or so blood beasts, most of them were also injured, even though they were all transformed from golden blood threads. These blood beasts were not living creatures, but under the constant consumption of the illusionary void butterflies, the vitality fluctuations emanating from their bodies were becoming weaker and weaker. Xueyu, we have to leave this place, Yang Kai whispered to Xueyu. But Uncle and I. Xueyu hesitantly looked in Ni Guang's direction, but she couldn't see him at all. Everything was wrapped in gorgeous colors, and one could only vaguely sense the intense energy fluctuations coming from within. Mr. Ni's cultivation is very high, you don't have to worry about him. As long as we can escape, he should be fine, Yang Kai comforted. Are you sure you can escape from here? Xueyu asked. Yang Kai said in a deep voice, whether or not I'm confident, I have to try. It's better than sitting here and waiting for death. Hearing him say so, Xueyu nodded and grit her teeth. Good, I'll go with you. She had been warned by Ni Guang in advance and had a hunch that such a situation would happen, so she did not hesitate. Then follow me. Yang Kai's expression became solemn as he ordered the 20 or so blood beasts to launch a fierce attack in a certain direction. In an instant, a gap was opened in the illusionary void butterflies that had surrounded the 2 of them. Go! Yang Kai shouted, his figure flickering as he grabbed Xueyu's arm and rushed out of the gap. The next moment, the 20 or so blood beasts twisted and turned back into golden and red golden blood threads before being taken back into his body. Suddenly losing their target, the illusionary void butterflies seemed to be startled for a moment. But soon, they flapped their wings and chased in the direction Yang Kai and Xueyu had fled. At this time, Yang Kai did not have time to worry about such things. Wrapping himself in his space force, Yang Kai flew forward at an extremely fast speed. Using his space force, his speed suddenly increased. Xueyu was dumbfounded for a moment, because it was not until this moment that she understood what it meant to be as fast as lightning. But soon, Yang Kai frowned because he found that his space force was greatly limited in this severed world. This damned place was filled with void cracks, so the Tao of space was unstable. In addition, when the illusionary void butterfly flapped its wings, it would interfere with the surrounding space, making it difficult for Yang Kai to use his space force. This discovery made Yang Kai's face sink, but what made him even angrier was that after he escaped the encirclement, a person actually chased after him. That person was none other than Elder Su Wei of Abandoned Lair. Su Wei was also struggling at this moment and was exhausted from running. He was being chased by countless illusionary void butterflies, but he did not care and instead desperately chased after Yang Kai and Xueyu. Even if he was attacked, he showed no intention of fighting back and simply dodged. What does he want to do? Xueyu faintly realized that the situation was not good. Yang Kai coldly snorted. He just wants to make us his scapegoat so he can escape. There was a saying that when being chased by an invincible enemy, it was not necessary to escape from the enemy, but only to escape from one's companions. Although Yang Kai and Xueyu were not Su Wei's companions, he obviously intended to chase after them. As long as he could use Yang Kai and Shui Yu to delay the illusionary void butterflies, he would have a chance to get rid of these annoying ancient divine spirit. On the other side, although Enai Guang discovered Su Wei's intentions, he had no ability to stop him. At this moment, he couldn't even move and could only stare at Su Wei's back from afar, roaring furiously. Despicable! After understanding Su Wei's intentions, Shui Yu gritted her teeth and shouted, her face filled with anger. Yang Kai sneered, "Every man for himself. Since he wants to scheme against us, let's see if he has the ability." Yang Kai was not afraid and did not panic because of Su Wei's actions. In just a dozen breaths of time, Yang Kai and Shui Yu had already fled a few dozen kilometers. As far as their eyes could see, Enai Guang and the others had long disappeared, leaving behind only a large number of illusionary void butterflies and Su Wei. As for Su Wei, he was also being chased by more illusionary void butterflies. While fleeing, Yang Kai released his divine sense to investigate the surrounding environment. Soon, he made a discovery and rushed in a certain direction with Shui Yu. In that direction, there was a void crack that could not be seen with the naked eye. Yang Kai believed that at this time, even if Su Wei released his divine sense, he would not be able to detect it. As long as Su Wei followed Yang Kai's footsteps, there was a chance he would run into that void crack. If that happened, even if he did not die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. Yang Kai deliberately brought Shui Yu close to the void crack in order to interfere with Su Wei's judgment. However, what Yang Kai never expected was that the countless illusionary void butterflies chasing after him were able to discover the existence of the void crack and quickly flew around it. This scene was naturally imprinted in Su Wei's eyes. Su Wei was an Origin King Realm Master, so he was naturally extremely experienced and cautious. Although he could not detect the void crack, from the movements of the illusionary void butterflies, he could infer that there was something strange about it. As such, he directly followed the path of the illusionary void butterflies and avoided the void crack unscathed. Yang Kai almost cursed out loud as he did not expect that Su Wei would be saved by the illusionary void butterflies in this situation. As time passed, whether it was the illusionary void butterflies or Su Wei behind them, they were getting closer and closer, and the situation was becoming more and more like they were about to be surrounded again. At this moment, Su Wei relaxed a lot because the illusionary void butterflies that had been chasing him and Kong Fa before had been scattered into several groups. At this moment, there were not many of them chasing after him. With his means, if he fought hard, it was possible for him to kill all the illusionary void butterflies chasing after him. But in that case, he would inevitably lose a lot of his strength and might even be injured. This was not what he wanted. In this severed world, he had to maintain his best condition at all times to cope with possible dangers. As such, he had been using Yang Kai and Shui Yu as leverage. The speed of these two juniors surprised him a little, but when he thought about Shui Yu's identity, he felt relieved. He thought that Yang Kai and Shui Yu's speed was all thanks to Shui Yu. This young master of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce must have cultivated some kind of incredible secret technique. But that was the end of it. Looking at the two figures only a few kilometers ahead of him, a gloomy expression flashed across Su Wei's eyes. Immediately, he secretly urged his secret technique while forming a series of complicated seals with his hands. The next moment, a layer of crimson light suddenly emerged from Su Wei's body, as if a blood mist was being sprayed from his pores. The moment this light appeared, Su Wei's speed suddenly increased to an incredible degree. The short distance of a few kilometers was instantly closed by Su Wei and Shui Yu, directly overtaking Yang Kai and Shui Yu. This was not the end though. Su Wei also sent out a palm strike towards Yang Kai and Shui Yu, condensing a powerful Saint Qi into an attack. There was no murderous intent in this palm strike because he had no intention of taking the lives of these two, he just wanted them to delay the illusionary void butterflies. Dead people could not be delayed. Damn it! Shui Yu shouted angrily as she threw her bracelet artifact forward to meet Su Wei's attack. Kong. With a loud bang, a burst of energy erupted and the bracelet flashed wildly under the violent force, causing Yang Kai and Shui Yu's speed to plummet and they were forced to stabilize themselves. Ha! Su Wei laughed wildly before turning back to look at Yang Kai and Shui Yu mockingly. "You two brats, try to survive." He wore a look of arrogance, as if his scheme had succeeded. "Want to run?" Yang Kai's face went cold as he stared straight into Su Wei's eyes, his left eye suddenly turning golden as a budding lotus pattern appeared in his pupil. Chapter 1765. Yang Kai hated Su Wei for using him to escape, so naturally he wouldn't give up so easily, so he took advantage of the moment Su Wei laughed arrogantly and relaxed to use his blossoming lotus secret technique. Yang Kai wasn't done yet though. With a flick of his wrist, the verdant dragon bone sword shot out, and with a loud dragon roar, a giant dark green dragon pounced towards Su Wei, opening its bloody maw and spitting out a highly toxic and corrosive breath. Su Wei's smile froze on his face in an instant and his eyes could not help trembling slightly. He had not expected that Yang Kai, an origin king, could make such an extraordinary move. In the next moment, he noticed a pure spiritual energy bombarding the barrier of his knowledge sea, causing his origin king realm knowledge sea barrier to tremble and crack. This pure spiritual energy then invaded his knowledge sea through this crack, transformed into a lotus flower, and slowly bloomed while absorbing the strength of his knowledge sea. A splitting headache. Su Wei couldn't help screaming as he hurriedly stabilized his mind and pushed the power of his knowledge sea to resist this strange lotus flower. Fortunately, his cultivation was not weak, so although he had been caught off guard by Yang Kai, he was not completely defeated. As soon as he pushed the power of his knowledge sea, the slowly blooming lotus flower was completely suppressed. However, if he wanted to expel it, it would take some effort. Su Weizhen didn't have time to pay attention to the abnormalities in his knowledge sea because the giant dark green dragon had already opened its bloody maw and rushed towards him. In front of this giant dragon, he was as small as an ant. Seeing that the giant dragon was about to swallow him, Su Wei grit his teeth. The crimson light around his body became brighter and his speed soared, allowing him to narrowly avoid the giant dragon's attack. When he reappeared, he was already 10 kilometers away, but his face was slightly pale and his breathing was rapid. First, he had fled with Kong Fa for a long time, then fought countless illusionary void butterflies, used 2 secret techniques that consumed a huge amount of spiritual energy, and was even attacked by Yang Kai's blossoming lotus secret technique. Even if he was an origin king realm master, Su Wei was unable to bear it for a while. Su Wei turned around bitterly, looking at Yang Kai and Shui Yu who were being surrounded one after another. "Brat, you better pray that you die here. Otherwise, I will make you regret being born in this world." As an origin king, he had been caught off guard by an origin returning realm junior. This was simply a great humiliation. Fortunately, no one else saw the scene just now. At the very least, it allowed him to retain some of his dignity. After he was done, he didn't stay any longer. He immediately fled. Su Wei did not believe that Yang Kai and Shui Yu could survive the attacks of so many illusionary void butterflies. Even he himself might not be able to escape alive under such circumstances. Otherwise, he wouldn't have tried so hard to make use of these 2 juniors. Humph! Yang Kai coldly snorted and stopped moving forward. After being delayed by Su Wei, he and Shui Yu had no way to escape. Now, the number of illusionary void butterflies surrounding them was twice as large as before. After all, Su Wei had disappeared, so the illusionary void butterflies attacking him before had all changed their target. More than 20 blood beasts were once again released by Yang Kai to protect him and attract the attention of the illusionary void butterflies. The giant dark green dragon transformed from the dragon bone sword also joined the fray. Shui Yu, who was standing next to Yang Kai, wore a dignified expression as sweat dripped from the tip of her nose. She was constantly summoning her artifact, consuming a great deal of her Saint Chi, but she had no intention of giving up. While killing enemies, she stuffed pills into her mouth to restore her Saint Chi. Even her symbiotic demon spirit, Xie, was released by Shui Yu. This symbiotic monster spirit was extremely powerful, and in terms of combat power alone, it was not inferior to Shui Yu's. Many years ago, in the Emperor Garden, Shuiyu had used this symbiotic monster spirit to fight Shanqing Luo's heavenly moon demon spider to a draw, demonstrating just how ferocious it was. Even so, the situation was still unsalvageable. The light on the blood beasts' bodies flickered, as if they could collapse at any moment, causing their defensive perimeter to shrink. How come you don't look worried at all? Shuiyu suddenly turned her head to look at Yang Kai and asked with a strange expression. Her hands did not remain idle as she sent out a series of powerful secret techniques, killing a large number of illusionary void butterflies and relieving the pressure on the blood beasts. It wasn't until this moment that she discovered that Yang Kai's face was completely calm, without the slightest trace of nervousness one would expect from someone who had reached a dead end. What are you worried about? Yang Kai chuckled and asked rhetorically while manipulating his golden blood threads to accurately harvest the lives of the illusionary void butterflies. Aren't you afraid of death? Seemingly infected by his demeanor, Shuiyu's expression also calmed down. Nonsense. Yang Kai spat disdainfully. Who isn't afraid of death? But there is a saying that if one dies under a peony flower, even a ghost can die a happy death. Shuiyu was taken aback for a moment before immediately glaring at Yang Kai. At this time, you're still in the mood to joke around? Yang Kai just chuckled dryly and did not answer. Although the current situation seemed extremely dangerous, it was actually very easy for him to resolve. He had at least two ways to get rid of these illusionary void butterflies. The simplest method was naturally to summon the sealed world bead and take Shuiyu to hide inside the sealed world bead. Once the two of them disappeared, it would be impossible for the illusionary void butterflies to remain here. In addition, he could also tear space and escape. Although the space force fluctuations here were chaotic and could interfere with his use of space force, escaping 100 to 200 kilometers at a time would not be a problem. The only concern was that he might encounter some kind of danger in the void. Both methods were very effective, and Yang Kai was fully confident he could succeed. However, this would inevitably expose some of his trump cards, especially the sealed world bead. This kind of thing had its own independent world, and its existence was simply too incredible, so Yang Kai did not dare expose it in front of Shuiyu. After all, she was the young master of Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce, and his relationship with her was not good enough for him to share secrets with her. As such, he had been thinking about how to get the best of both worlds. Yang Kai. Shuiyu suddenly called out leisurely. What? Yang Kai turned his head and looked at her, feeling that her tone was a little strange at the moment. Have you always hated me? Shuiyu asked, her eyes drifting as if she did not dare to look at Yang Kai. Why would I hate you? Yang Kai was stunned. Because I sent people to hunt you down, and because I bullied you. Shuiyu said softly. Ha. Yang Kai laughed. What are you laughing at? Shuiyu frowned, looking at Yang Kai with some displeasure. She wanted to talk to Yang Kai seriously, but the other party was acting so indifferent, making her feel like she was being ignored. Yang Kai looked at her playfully, smiling as he said, "The dignified young master of Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce has such sentimental moments. After all, a woman is a woman." This sentence seemed to have stirred up a hornet's nest, causing Shuiyu to grit her teeth and shout, "I am a woman, so what? I was born a woman, and I never wanted to be a man. Do you think I like it? After so many years, who has ever considered my feelings?" Saying so, she stretched out her hand and tapped her chest fiercely. With a flash of brilliance, the Shuiyu standing in front of Yang Kai instantly changed her appearance. At this moment, she was no longer the heroic and extraordinary man she had been before. Instead, she was a beautiful woman with a graceful figure, long hair that reached down to her hips, and a pair of beautiful eyes staring at Yang Kai as if she wanted to eat him alive. Combined with the man's clothes she was wearing, Shuiyu at this moment had a different kind of temptation. Yang Kai stared at her for a moment before rubbing his nose in amazement. "I was just saying something casually, why are you reacting so strongly?" Shuiyu just stared at him, her eyes flashing with a light of love and hate that Yang Kai was familiar with. "Hey!" Yang Kai looked helpless. "Is it okay for you to do this? If someone were to see you like this, it wouldn't be good for your Chamber of Commerce. If someone were to see your special constitution, you might be taken away." Shui Yu's special constitution was extremely attractive to Origin Kings. The dragon marrow phoenix body was something that could only be encountered by chance. Any man who obtained Shui Yu's primordial yin would be able to greatly increase their strength without any hidden dangers. Shui Yu's primordial yin could be said to be the best pills. For Origin Kings who had been cultivating for countless years but were still unable to improve their strength, it was an unimaginable temptation. Even if her identity was the young master of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, there were bound to be people who would take risks to obtain her. There was no shortage of crazy people in this world. Shui Yu sneered, brushed her hair back behind her ear, and squinted towards Yang Kai, saying leisurely, "Besides you and me, is there anyone else here? Besides, you already knew I was a woman and knew about my special constitution, but I don't see you having any ideas about me. What's wrong? Young lady isn't attractive at all? Why are you bringing this up now?" Yang Kai's expression suddenly became unnatural. Although he was well versed in the ways of men and women, sometimes he still felt that some women were unreasonable. In this kind of place, in this kind of environment, Shui Yu was actually discussing such things with him. He simply didn't know how to answer. "You shameless bastard, you actually know how to be shy?" Shui Yu blushed slightly, but still continued to despise Yang Kai. "I really didn't know you had such thin skin. Back then on that dead star, how could you be so shameless? That was an accident, okay?" Yang Kai glared at her. "It was so many years ago, what are you doing with it? Didn't we agree to forget it together?" "Who agreed with you? I will never forget that kind of thing for the rest of my life." Shui Yu's chest heaved violently as her anger erupted, and with a wave of her hand, countless illusionary void butterflies were killed on the spot. "Fine, what exactly do you want to do?" Yang Kai looked at her dejectedly. "Tell me, you're making me very confused." "What do I want to do?" Shui Yu grit her teeth and shouted, "What do you think I want to do? What else can I do?" With a hysterical look, she roared 3 times in a row, a trace of grievance mixed with her anger. Chapter 1766. Seeing Shui Yu's unreasonable appearance, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling angry. Staring at her coldly for a moment, Yang Kai suddenly snorted and took a step towards her, a fierce light flashing across his eyes, causing Shui Yu's face to pale slightly. The next moment, Yang Kai stretched out his hand and pulled Shui Yu's tender body into his arms, and under her stunned and horrified gaze, he leaned over and kissed her thin and tender lips. At the same time, his other hand covered her private part and began to rub vigorously. His actions were extremely rough, as if he didn't have the slightest intention of showing any tenderness towards the fairer sex. "Ouch, you bastard!" Shui Yu screamed in panic as she stretched out her hands to push Yang Kai away, but no matter how hard she tried, she was unable to push him away. The stalwart body that was pressed against her was like a towering mountain, unmoving. Amidst the pain, a strange feeling spread throughout her body. With a soft moan, Shui Yu struggled a few times before her body soon softened. The surrounding illusionary void butterflies flapped their wings, making a buzzing sound as the colorful butterflies wrapped around the two of them. The blood beasts fought fiercely while the giant dark green dragon roared. After a long time, their lips parted. Yang Kai pushed Shui Yu away and squinted at her, a look of abandonment on his face. Shui Yu's cheeks were flushed red and her slender white neck was also flushed red. Her body seemed to have gone limp, and after leaving Yang Kai's embrace, she staggered slightly, but at this moment, she was looking around, her eyes drifting, no longer showing the aggressive posture she had before. "Satisfied?" Yang Kai snorted. "Ugh." Shui Yu's face flushed red as she opened her mouth but did not know what to say. "Damn, you're never done." Yang Kai cursed. "Why don't you take a look at when you're still bothering me? You really don't know what you're doing." Shui Yu suddenly wore a look of grievance as her eyes turned red and she began to cry, but she quickly adjusted her mood and took a deep breath. Gritting her teeth, she said, "So what? I got what I wanted anyway." "Is this what you want?" Yang Kai looked at her sarcastically. "So what if I am?" Shui Yu pursed her red lips. "In this world, besides my father and the Chamber of Commerce's elders, Only you know that I'm a woman. I don't want to die without experiencing what it's like to be a woman. So you thought you were dead for sure. Yang Kai suddenly realized why this woman was so crazy. That's right, you said it yourself. Even if I die under a peony, I'll still be a romantic ghost. So what if I let you be a romantic? Shui Yu giggled like a beautiful fairy. At the very least, if I really die here, I'll die as a woman. At least I'll have one of my wishes fulfilled. Unreasonable indeed. Yang Kai shook his head slightly. Shui Yu twisted her neck and snorted, "Whatever you say." After speaking, Shui Yu seemed to relax a lot. Her whole person became more spirited, and even her face was brimming with a dazzling brilliance. Let me say this first. You forced me to do this today, so I won't take responsibility. Yang Kai raised a finger and waved it in front of Shui Yu's face, as if he had eaten her dry and wouldn't take responsibility. Who wants you to take responsibility? Shui Yu curled her lips. I know you have women and more than one, but, as the saying goes, a wife is better than a concubine, and a concubine is better than a lover. You know quite a lot. Yang Kai chuckled before suddenly sighing and looking at Shui Yu with a solemn expression. He whispered, It's not easy for you either. Shui Yu pouted, It's good that you know. As she spoke, she took the initiative to lean towards Yang Kai and extend her jade white hand towards Yang Kai. Kai Yang held her hand in his and teased, What's wrong? Are you ready to go to the Yellow Springs with me? In any case, it's already like this, so if you have any other methods, hurry up and use them. Otherwise, I'm afraid your women will become widows and I won't have the strength to fight anymore, Shui Yu said indifferently, as if she was mentally prepared to die. Yang Kai nodded and reached out to hug Shui Yu's waist. Seeing this unfathomable look on his face, Shui Yu's eyes couldn't help lighting up. She was really prepared to die here, but seeing Yang Kai's posture, it was obvious he still had some strength left. She couldn't help flashing a brilliant light as she secretly looked forward to seeing what cards Yang Kai still had up his sleeve. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully and was about to use his space force to tear space and escape with Shui Yu when he suddenly remembered something. Pausing for a moment, Yang Kai took out what he was looking for. It was a bracelet-like artifact, but it was simple in texture and was obviously quite old. What's more, this bracelet seemed to be engraved with countless complex runes. Staring at this bracelet, Yang Kai turned to look at the illusionary void butterflies surrounding them and with a thought, poured his Saint Chi into the bracelet. The next moment, the bracelet exuded a faint light and the runes engraved on it seemed to move for a moment, releasing a mysterious wave of power. An incredible scene happened next. When this wave of power swept out, the illusionary void butterflies that had been besieging the blood beasts without fear of death seemed to have encountered nemesis and fell from the sky. Looking at this situation, it was as if the power of these illusionary void butterflies had been restrained. What is this? Shui Yu looked at the bracelet in Yang Kai's hand in surprise. Yang Kai didn't speak and simply continued to pour his Saint Chi into it. Another wave of energy burst out and more illusionary void butterflies fell to the ground. In a short time, nearly half of the illusionary void butterflies that had surrounded the two of them had lost their ability to move while the rest were forced to flee in horror. This thing can actually be used like this. Yang Kai also had a look of surprise. What the hell is this? Shui Yu asked again as she looked at the bracelet in amazement. Under the investigation of her divine sense, she was unable to tell what grade this artifact was. The insect enslavement bracelet. Yang Kai replied casually, Someone told me that it has a magical effect on some exotic insects. I just wanted to try it out, but I didn't expect it to really work. The insect enslavement bracelet was an emperor artifact, an artifact refined by the insect emperor. Countless ferocious exotic insects were sealed inside it. After Yang Kai killed the insect emperor, this insect enslavement bracelet became his trophy, but because his cultivation was not high enough, he did not dare refine it easily and had been storing it in his space ring. Yang Yen had told him that this insect enslavement bracelet was a powerful artifact that the insect emperor had relied on to become famous. The aura it emitted could naturally restrain all exotic insects, and judging from the situation in front of him, The illusionary void butterflies were undoubtedly restrained by this insect enslavement bracelet. Although Yang Kai had not refined the insect enslavement bracelet at all and had only slightly stimulated its power with his Saint Chi, he was still able to make these illusionary void butterflies lose their ability to move. The strength of an emperor artifact was obvious. However, Yang Kai was unable to exert its full power, so the illusionary void butterflies did not die. They simply instinctively feared the aura of the insect enslavement bracelet and lost their ability to move or even their desire to attack. A thick layer of illusionary void butterflies covered the ground, all of them struggling but unable to fly up. Even more illusionary void butterflies fled into the distance, but they did not disperse and instead surrounded Yang Kai, sealing off the surrounding space. Yang Kai laughed and waved his hand to take back his severely damaged blood beast army. At the same time, he also put away the dragon bone sword, held the insect enslavement bracelet high, poured his Saint Chi into it, and strode forward with Xueyu. Wherever he went, the illusionary void butterflies would constantly retreat, always maintaining a certain distance from him. Once the distance was closed, the illusionary void butterflies would inevitably fall to the ground and wait until he was far away before flying up again to continue their pursuit. Xueyu was pleasantly surprised. Although she had been prepared to die before, if there was a chance to live, no one was willing to die so easily, especially since she had just spoken with Yang Kai and was filled with hope for the bright future ahead of her. Like this, the group advanced for 100 kilometers without any worries. But the illusionary void butterflies never dispersed and continued to follow Yang Kai and Xueyu. These annoying things, Yang Kai frowned, realizing just how troublesome this ancient divine spirit was. Why don't we kill them all first? Xueyu proposed. In any case, with the suppression of the insect enslavement bracelet, the illusionary void butterflies could not pose a threat to her and Yang Kai. All they needed was time. Too troublesome. Yang Kai shook his head, looked around, and after a moment, his eyes lit up and he pointed to a certain direction. "Let's go there." Saying so, Yang Kai took Xueyu and flew over. "Hey, what do you want to do?" Xueyu was shocked because in the void in front of them was a void crack that was visible to the naked eye, more than 1,000 meters long, and exuded a terrifying aura. The direction Yang Kai was heading was straight towards this void crack, without the slightest intention of avoiding it. "What's wrong? Just a moment ago you said you wanted to go to the Yellow Springs with me, but now you're scared?" Yang Kai looked at her with a smile. "If you're scared, it's not too late to leave." Xueyu bit her red lips and said, "Who's scared? Don't try to test my intentions." Saying so, she pushed her Saint Chi in a fit of pique and dragged Yang Kai towards the void crack. Yang Kai remained unmoved and simply let her do as she pleased. The two of them approached the void crack at an extremely fast speed, and when they were so close, Yang Kai could clearly feel Xueyu's nervousness. After all, there was a huge void crack in front of them, and no one knew what they would encounter or whether they would be able to find their way back. Just as they were about to rush into the void crack, Xueyu turned her head and glanced at Yang Kai, seemingly making a final inquiry. After failing to obtain Yang Kai's denial, Xueyu grit her teeth and took the initiative to drag Yang Kai into the void crack. In a flash of light, the two of them disappeared. The illusionary void butterflies that were tailing them didn't stop until this moment, circled around a few times, and after confirming that there was no prey, withdrew like a swarm of bees. Chapter 1767. Surrounded by chaotic nothingness, it was as if they were falling into an endless abyss. Xueyu couldn't help holding Yang Kai's hand tightly, her whole body clinging to him as she sought a sense of security. She had never experienced such a bizarre experience. Void cracks were regarded as terrifying existences by all Origin Kings, but this time, she had taken the initiative to rush into them. She didn't know what Yang Kai was relying on, but she could only choose to believe that this man who had just molested her in an extremely rude way would not put her in danger. Yang Kai really didn't disappoint her. In this dark space crack, he didn't show the slightest fear and instead patted his hands to calm himself down. Perceiving Yang Kai's comfort, Xueyu's mood immediately relaxed. What should we do now? Shuiyu asked. She turned her head back, wanting to see the entrance they had come from before, but she could no longer see it. Void cracks were unpredictable and space was dislocated. If one entered from a certain point, they might appear tens of thousands of kilometers or even 1 million kilometers away in an instant, so it was naturally impossible to find their way back at this moment. Don't worry, Yang Kai's tone had a rare gentleness as he chuckled. Just leave this place to me. Shuiyu gently nodded. Yang Kai's words seemed to have a reassuring charm, allowing her to relax both physically and mentally. What strong space force fluctuations! This place is really extraordinary. It seems we should have entered earlier. Yang Kai released his divine sense to investigate the surroundings, seemingly a little annoyed. His expression became solemn as he began circulating his space force, feeling the mysteries around him and comprehending the unique power of this void crack. He relished this opportunity. This kind of experience was of great benefit to his cultivation of the Tao of space, so of course he did not want to miss it. After a while, his gaze turned to a certain location and he said, "Come with me." Saying so, Yang Kai pulled Shuiyu and flew in that direction. Inside the void crack. There was nothing here, only chaos. This place was like a world that had never been opened before, with no living creatures or world energy. It was an existence even more complete than a dead star. Shuiyu couldn't sense anything at all. Except for the touch and warmth of Yang Kai's large hand that was holding her, she held it very tightly, afraid that she would be separated from Yang Kai. In this damned place, even the passage of time seemed to be incomparably long, but when Shuiyu stabilized her mind, not only did she not reject this place, but she also felt that this place was extremely dangerous. Instead, he enjoyed this kind of journey. For a man to hold her hand and cut through the thorns in a dangerous place, for a man to bear all kinds of dangers in front while she followed behind with peace of mind, this kind of experience was simply an extravagant hope for her. As the third young master of Shuiyu, as well as the future successor of Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce, under normal circumstances, the one who was leading the charge was her. She needed to establish prestige in front of her subordinates. She needed to solidify her position in Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce, and she also needed to disguise her gender, her tone of voice, and her style of conduct. Her life was far more tiring than most people. But here, she could put everything aside and simply enjoy the feeling of being taken care of. Yang Kai had just said that it wasn't easy for her. Perhaps he had just said it casually and didn't think too deeply about it, but this sentence had poked the deepest and softest part of Shuiyu's heart. It almost made her cry. At this moment, her heart was filled with warmth, and she only hoped that this kind of time would continue. At this time, if she still couldn't see that Yang Kai was proficient in the Tao of space, then Shuiyu wouldn't be the young master of Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce. But she didn't point it out. A smart woman knew when to speak and when to remain silent. After an unknown amount of time, Shuiyu was still immersed in the warm atmosphere, but somewhere in the distance, a faint light suddenly appeared. This light was faint and seemed to be very far away, like a few stars in the territory of the star realm, embellishing this world of nothingness. Ha! Yang Kai laughed loudly, seemingly in an extremely good mood. There really are space spirit crystals here. Luolan didn't lie to me. Shuiyu was startled for a moment before suddenly realizing, are those space spirit crystals? Did you enter this place to look for space spirit crystals? Yang Kai nodded and sped up. These few starlights seemed to be very far away, but in fact, it only took Yang Kai less than half a stick of incense worth of time to reach them. The light was faint, but it was better than nothing, but in this void crack, it was the only source of light. Taking a closer look, Yang Kai discovered that each of these space spirit crystals was about the size of a fist and had a hexagonal shape. They were crystal clear, and there were many fine cracks in them, from which space force fluctuations could be felt. They're quite different from the ones I've obtained before. Yang Kai was extremely surprised, but he didn't rush to take these space spirit crystals and instead began examining them with interest. The space spirit crystals in front of him were indeed very different from the ones he had obtained before, whether it was their shape or the fluctuations of power coming from them, especially the fine cracks on their surface. They were all different from the ones he had obtained before. Naturally, they're not the same. Shuiyu glanced at him, as if she knew something. What do you mean? Yang Kai asked suspiciously. This kind of space spirit crystal is a pure space spirit crystal. A true space spirit crystal is born from space force. The space spirit crystals in the outside world are just the concomitant products of various mineral loads and contain a lot of impurities. Although they can also be regarded as a kind of space spirit crystal, compared to this kind, their grade is far inferior. Shuiyu reached out and picked up one of the space spirit crystals, the entire process extremely easy, as if this space spirit crystal had been casually thrown away here. Pointing to the fine cracks on its surface, Shuiyu said, "Look at this, its power is enough to affect space itself. If this space spirit crystal is detonated using a secret technique, it can cause space to collapse on a large scale. At that time, no matter who is sucked in, I'm afraid they won't have a good ending." Space spirit crystals can be used like this? Yang Kai suddenly became interested and looked at Shuiyu thoughtfully. Does your Chamber of Commerce have such a secret technique? There should be, Shuiyu nodded. I've heard of it before, but I've never come into contact with it. Saying so, she handed the space spirit crystal to Yang Kai and continued. Moreover, a space ring refined with this kind of space spirit crystal will have a huge space inside, much better than an ordinary space ring, but I don't think any artifact refiner would dare use this kind of thing to refine a space ring. Doing so would simply be playing with their lives. Saying so, the only 4 space spirit crystals left here were collected by Yang Kai. Silently probing them, Yang Kai found that the space force contained in these space spirit crystals was beyond imagination. If he could collect 20 of them, it would be enough for him to arrange a cross-cultivation star space array, one that could teleport him further than the ones he had arranged before. This kind of space spirit crystal can't be put into a space ring. What are you going to do about it? Shuiyu looked at the thing in Yang Kai's hand and asked. Even without her reminder, Yang Kai had already noticed this problem. He had just tried to put these space spirit crystals into his space ring, but he had been unable to succeed. The power contained in these space spirit crystals clashed violently with his space ring, making it impossible to accept. Thinking about it for a moment, Yang Kai used his divine sense to communicate with the sealed world bead. In the next moment, the space spirit crystal was thrown into the sealed world bead. Yang Kai could not help breathing a sigh of relief. It seemed that the sealed world bead was an extremely high-end existence. After all, it was an emperor artifact, so it had its own independent world and its own world principles, so it should have no problem accommodating space spirit crystals. Shuiyu was surprised for a moment before chuckling lightly. It seems that you have a lot of secrets. Are you more interested in me now? Yang Kai beamed. Cut the crap. Shuiyu glared at him. I do have a lot of secrets, and when I can tell you in the future, I'll tell you. Yang Kai's expression became serious as he quickly said. Shuiyu slowly shook her head. I don't need to know these things. I just want someone who can treat me like a woman, and that's enough. Hearing her heartfelt words, Yang Kai looked at her for a while before smiling slightly, taking Shuiyu's hand again and flying forward. An hour later, from the void crack, a few more points of starlight appeared in front of the two of them. After repeating this process for a few days, the number of space spirit crystals in Yang Kai's hands had reached nearly 100 pieces. The void crack here seemed to be the best breeding ground for space spirit crystals as the rich space force here condensed and crystallized. Shuiyu silently followed Yang Kai, helping him collect space spirit crystals without any complaints. The dangers of the outside world of the severed world seemed to be extremely distant to the two of them, as if the world they entered had nothing to do with others. On this day, Yang Kai was leading Shuiyu to continue searching for space spirit crystals when Shuiyu suddenly called out, Yang Kai, look over there. What's wrong? Yang Kai stopped and turned his head to look in the direction Shuiyu had indicated, but after a single glance, his expression brightened and he muttered, so many. In that direction, it was like a moonless night with countless stars, bright and dim lights blooming in the void, like bright lanterns in the dark, guiding the way. After staying here for a few days, Yang Kai naturally knew that every light represented in space spirit crystal born here, representing great wealth. He had been very satisfied with the hundreds of space spirit crystals he had obtained before, but when he saw the scene over there at this moment, he realized that his expectations had been too low. There were more than 100 points of light in that direction? That meant there were at least hundreds or thousands of them. Haha. Yang Kai couldn't help laughing as he stretched out his hand, pulled Shui Yu into his arms, hugged her, and kissed her fiercely on the cheek. This rough treatment made Shui Yu quite unhappy, biting her red lips and wiping her cheeks as she angrily muttered, "You vulgar man!" Yang Kai didn't answer and simply led her over to the other side like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 1768. The void was vast and boundless, but it was dotted with stars arranged in a spiral shape, and at the center of this spiral, a terrifying power fluctuation was pulsing. Yang Kai and Shui Yu stood above this huge spiral composed of countless space spirit crystals with dignified expressions. When they discovered that there were many space spirit crystals here before, the two of them had rushed over with great interest, but after arriving, Yang Kai discovered that this place was quite strange. The space spirit crystals were still the same space spirit crystals, but they seemed to be attracted by some unknown force and were arranged in a special shape, a spiral. Even Shui Yu, who was not proficient in the Tao of space, could feel a dangerous aura coming from the center of this spiral, as if it was the source of everything. This place was already a void crack, but at the center of this spiral, there seemed to be a strange existence that could even swallow this void crack. Yang Kai. Shui Yu whispered in Yang Kai's ear, "I'm a little nervous." "It's normal, I'm also a little nervous," Yang Kai comforted. Yang Kai comforted her. This was an instinctive fear of the power emanating from the spiral. No one could avoid it, but this thing seems to be of great use to me. "What are you going to do?" Shui Yu looked at him in amazement. Yang Kai frowned and pondered for a while before patting Shui Yu's hand and saying, "Help me collect those space spirit crystals first." Shui Yu looked at him deeply, her beautiful eyes bright, as if she could see straight into Yang Kai's heart and understand his thoughts. After a while, Shui Yu nodded meekly. As she spoke, she flew out. Arriving at the space spirit crystals scattered around the spiral, Shui Yu began collecting them one by one. Yang Kai still stood in the same place, staring at the center of the spiral, a dignified look on his face that had never been seen before. After a long time, he released his divine sense to investigate the center of the spiral. He wanted to see what kind of mysteries were hidden inside this spiral, but when his divine sense came into contact with it, he was shocked to discover an astonishing and terrifying attractive force coming from it. This attractive force was so strong that it was simply unheard of, and Yang Kai's mind was instantly drawn in. Not only that, standing in place, Yang Kai felt as if his body was being held by an invisible hand. Yang Kai disappeared directly, and when he reappeared, he was already at the center of the spiral. "Yang Kai!" Shui Yu was shocked and hurriedly called out. However, she did not receive any response from Yang Kai. From her position, she could see everything. Yang Kai was simply standing in the center of the spiral, motionless. It was as if he had lost all sense of the outside world and was completely unresponsive. Shui Yu used voice with Shui Yu. Shui Yu immediately understood Shui Yu was not daring to act rashly. They could only stand in place anxiously, gazing in the direction of Kai Yang, secretly praying that he was safe. Spinning, endless spinning, Yang Kai felt as if his body and soul were about to be torn apart. The unbearable pain made him want to open his mouth and scream, but he found that he couldn't make a sound no matter how hard he tried. The moment he was pulled into the spiral, his mind was repeating the process of the spiral. This feeling was like being sucked into a violent tornado, and he could only passively endure the destruction of the spiral without being able to do anything to resist. His knowledge sea-churning, Yang Kai only felt dizzy, as if his soul was being thrown out of his body by this spinning force. Ever since he had achieved success in his cultivation, he had rarely encountered such a situation that left him at a loss. At any time, in the face of any crisis, he could quickly formulate a reasonable countermeasure to resolve the danger he might encounter. But this time, he found that he was somewhat powerless. While being pulled in by the spiral force, Yang Kai was shocked to find that the strength of his knowledge sea was drying up at a speed visible to the naked eye. Looking inside his body, Yang Kai found that the physique he was so proud of was beginning to show dense scars. Desperately urging his Saint Chi and spiritual energy, Yang Kai tried to break free from this strange spiral force. But he gained nothing. It was as if he had fallen into a quagmire, and the more he struggled, the deeper he sank. In less than a dozen breaths of time, his knowledge sea had dried up. The damage to his soul gave Yang Kai a splitting headache. Inside Yang Kai's knowledge sea, the soul-warming lotus, which was exuding a seven-colored glow, played a crucial role at this moment. While Yang Kai's knowledge sea was exhausted, it immediately began to nourish Yang Kai's soul and repair the damaged areas. The feedback and nourishment of the soul-warming lotus cleared Yang Kai's mind for a moment. But at this moment, Yang Kai suddenly had an unusual feeling. While the spiral force was destroying his body and spiritual energy, it was also adding another kind of force to his body. It was the Tao of space. This allowed Yang Kai to gain a new understanding of the mysteries of the Tao of space in a very short time. Yang Kai was overjoyed and quickly endured the unbearable pain while calmly perceiving his soul. Yang Kai suddenly gained a glimmer of understanding. At a certain moment, Yang Kai resolutely gave up resistance and allowed the spiral force to throw his soul out of his body. In an instant, another kind of vision appeared in front of him. At this moment, it was as if his soul had left his body. His soul covered the void, invisible and invisible, but he could see everything around him. He clearly saw that his body was still standing quietly in the center of the spiral, surrounded by countless space spirit crystals that exuded a faint light. Shui Yu was standing not far away, constantly calling out his name. Her beautiful face was filled with anxiety, her beautiful eyes filled with panic, and her face was pale. Yang Kai tried to send his divine sense to her, but Shui Yu didn't notice him at all and continued to scream. Yang Kai didn't continue because he knew that his soul wasn't truly leaving his body, and because of the influence of the Tao of space here, he couldn't transmit his thoughts to Shui Yu. Yang Kai once again focused his attention on the spiral. Observing from this angle, Yang Kai was able to see more and obtain more. After a short while, Yang Kai thoughtfully urged his space force and released it in the direction of the spiral force. The pressure on him was greatly reduced. Whether it was from his soul or his body, Yang Kai suddenly felt much more relaxed. Yang Kai suddenly understood. This spiral energy was shockingly a type of extremely profound space energy, and it was countless times more profound than what he had comprehended. Before an absolute gap in cultivation, any resistance was futile and would only increase the pain he felt. Only by following the path of the spiral would one be able to comprehend such a profound realm. This was like copying a gourd, although for the time being one could only grasp the shape and not the essence, one could still gain some insights. If one persevered, one would inevitably be able to grasp the essence. After understanding this, Yang Kai no longer hesitated and began to urge his space force without restraint, allowing the circulation of his space force to coincide with the spiral's trajectory. This was an extremely difficult process, but also an extremely slow one. Countless wounds began to appear on Yang Kai's body and golden blood began to seep out from them, but instead of spilling out, the blood squirmed like a living creature and began to repair his wounds. Yang Kai's excellent physique played a crucial role at this time, allowing him to persist for a long time. Time passed little by little, and Yang Kai became completely immersed in this wonderful enlightenment, forgetting everything around him. As time passed, the space force exuding from his body not only showed no signs of weakening, but instead became stronger and purer, matching more and more perfectly with the spiral's trajectory. Yang Kai didn't feel much pressure from this. His space force and the spiral began to overlap, and the effect of this rotation on him was negligible. Until a certain moment, the two forces perfectly overlapped. At that moment, the entire void seemed to hum for a moment. Yang Kai suddenly felt an extremely wonderful feeling in his heart. At this moment, he found that he seemed to have become the huge spiral, the two of them becoming one, inseparable from each other. The surrounding light was dazzling, and in the direction of the spiral, the countless space spirit crystals all bloomed with dazzling light before bursting apart under the influence of an inexplicable concept. The bursting space spirit crystals didn't cause the void to collapse. Instead, they turned into tiny streaks of energy that flowed along the spiral's trajectory towards its center. These energies were densely packed like black lines, and they were innumerable. And at the center of this spiral was where Yang Kai's body was located. These black threads of energy formed by the bursting space spirit crystals all rushed into Yang Kai's body before disappearing. The dazzling light gradually dissipated and the entire void returned to darkness, without the slightest trace of light. Even the spiral's force had disappeared. Yang Kai, who had been standing in place all this time, finally had time to carefully examine his body. After releasing his divine sense, Yang Kai couldn't help frowning. He found that the state of his body was quite strange at this moment. Black threads were looming over his skin, and when these black threads appeared, it made him look like he was missing a part of his flesh. Only after these black threads disappeared did the missing flesh reappear. Naturally, his flesh wouldn't disappear for no reason. This was just a visual interference caused by the space force being too powerful. It was an interference that could even swallow one's vision and divine sense. Even Yang Kai couldn't stop this kind of interference. Perhaps he would have to wait until he fully familiarized himself with this power before he could eliminate it. However, at this moment, Yang Kai felt better than he had ever felt before. This time's accident had allowed him to swallow and fuse almost all of the wondrous concepts contained in the void spiral and the power of over 1,000 pure space spirit crystals, allowing his comprehension of the Tao of space to reach a new level, a height he had never been able to reach before. Overjoyed, Yang Kai carefully experienced the various changes he had undergone. The more he experienced these changes, the more he found that his previous understanding of the Tao of space was too shallow, and the more he discovered that if he had any attainments in the Tao of space, the more terrifying the means he could display would be. Yang Kai was secretly shocked. Chapter 1769. But now wasn't the best time to experience this. At this moment, it was as if Kai Yang was in possession of a rich treasury, and he had the key to it. In fact, he was already standing inside this treasury. But he had no time to examine and deal with his treasures. Calming his thoughts, Yang Kai turned to look in the direction of Shuiyu. He did not forget that in such a place, there was a person who was worried about him, constantly calling his name and relying on him. But after looking around, Yang Kai could not help frowning because there was no one in that direction. Shuiyu was nowhere to be seen. Looking around as far as his divine sense could reach, there was no trace of Shuiyu. Where did she go? Yang Kai frowned secretly. Yang Kai didn't think that Shuiyu would abandon him. Although he hadn't had much contact with Shuiyu and didn't know much about her, from the short time they had spent together, he could tell that she wasn't that kind of person. In this void crack, even if she was strong and had not cultivated the Tao of space, she would be like a headless fly. Even if she spent thousands of years searching, she would not be able to leave. As such, it was impossible for her to find a way out on her own. Did she encounter some kind of danger? Yang Kai's heart clenched as he thought of a possibility, but what kind of danger could there be in this void crack? Although this was a place of chaos outside the severed world, the two of them had not encountered any danger along the way. After standing in place and contemplating for a while, Yang Kai began to move. No matter what, he had to find Shuiyu first. Taking a step forward, Yang Kai was already 100 kilometers away, his expression calm, every step taking in accordance with the mysteries of space. The previous Yang Kai. He had to tear space to move hundreds or thousands of kilometers at a time. Later, as his attainments in the Tao of space improved, although he was able to teleport short distances, it was only a dozen or so kilometers. Such a distance was nothing to him. But at this moment, Yang Kai could easily cross 100 kilometers in a single step, and this was far from his limit. As he moved, Yang Kai confirmed the insights he had gained after devouring the spiral force, further improving his understanding of the Tao of space. According to his thoughts, even if Shuiyu left, she couldn't have run too far. After all, in this damned place, she couldn't run far. Therefore, he used the place where he was before as the center and expanded in all directions in a circle to search for him. This was indeed the case. About half an incense stick of time later, Yang Kai discovered Shui Yu's figure. However, at this moment, she was in an extremely sorry state. She was fleeing in panic in the empty space, and her long hair seemed to be slightly disheveled while dark red blood flowed out from the corners of her mouth. Behind her was a strange monster beast that was 70 to 80 feet long. It looked like a sea lion. The monster beast's body was fat and bloated, and it had a wide tail. As it wriggled, it followed behind Shui Yu at a leisurely pace, and from time to time, it would issue an ear-piercing cry. When he saw the monster beast, Yang Kai's eyes narrowed and he was shocked. This was because he clearly felt the fluctuations of power from the monster beast that came from the same source as his own, the Tao of space. Every movement of this monster beast, every movement of its body, contained the mysteries of space. It seemed to be able to slide its body along the tracks of space as it advanced. Therefore, although its movements looked very clumsy, it could still easily follow Shui Yu, who was desperately fleeing. In other words, it didn't have the intention to immediately kill Shui Yu. Instead, it was toying with Shui Yu like a cat playing with a mouse. It took pleasure in chasing her. When Yang Kai saw Shui Yu, this monster beast opened its big catfish-like mouth and spat out a burst of energy visible to the naked eye. This energy was like a sharp blade that easily cut through space and shot straight toward Shui Yu. Perceiving the terrifying power behind her, Shui Yu's beautiful face paled. Opening her mouth, she bit the tip of her tongue and summoned the phantom of her symbiotic monster spirit, the Xie, above her head. The Xie's body was covered with thick black hair, its eyes were bright and piercing, and it had a single horn on its forehead, giving it a powerful appearance. As soon as it appeared, it opened its mouth and let out a roar before charging forward recklessly. The Xie was a symbiotic monster spirit that was comparable to Shui Yu in terms of combat power. An ordinary third-order origin returning realm master was no match for it. However, that attack easily cut the Xie's phantom in half. Amidst the mournful howls, the shadow of the Xie disappeared. Shui Yu, who was the host of this phantom, also suffered a heavy blow and coughed up a mouthful of blood again. Her tender body trembled, and even her speed of escape slowed. Shui Yu didn't dare to look back, her beautiful eyes dim. At that moment, a figure descended from the sky and pulled her into his arms. Shui Yu raised her head with difficulty and immediately saw Yang Kai's resolute face. Even in the darkness, she felt that his face exuded endless light, as if he had lit a beacon for her on the dim road ahead. "You're finally here." Shui Yu squeezed out a smile as she gasped for breath. "There was an accident," Yang Kai nodded. While speaking, he pushed his Saint Qi to investigate Shui Yu's body. His brow furrowed slightly as he found that Shui Yu's situation wasn't ideal. He didn't know how long she had been entangled with this monster beast, but the Saint Qi in her body had almost dried up and her meridians and physique were damaged. If he had arrived a moment later, even if Shui Yu hadn't been killed by the monster beast, she might have died of exhaustion. "How did you provoke it?" Yang Kai looked at the monster beast floating in the air and asked. "It appeared on its own." Shui Yu leaned into Yang Kai's arms and replied softly, "I waited for you there for several days, but you didn't show any movement. I didn't know when this monster beast appeared nearby, but it seemed to have been attracted by you and rushed towards you. I was afraid it would disturb you, so you lured it away?" Yang Kai looked down at her. Shui Yu hesitated for a moment before nodding. Yang Kai sighed softly as his heart filled with warmth. "Your body, what happened?" Shui Yu suddenly exclaimed as she stared at the abnormalities on Yang Kai's body in a panic. The faintly discernible flesh and black lines on his body made Shui Yu think that Yang Kai had suffered some kind of accident, causing her to be on edge. "Some of my strength can't be controlled, but it's not a big problem. As long as I completely integrate with that strength, everything will be fine," Yang Kai explained, patting Shui Yu's back and saying, "Don't worry, what we need to deal with now is this thing." Saying so, he stared at the strange monster beast in front of him with a dignified expression. Shui Yu's face changed slightly as she whispered, "Be careful, it's very powerful." Its strength is definitely not lower than an Origin King's, and it is proficient in the Tao of Space. If I'm not mistaken, it should be a shocking void beast. Yang Kai grinned. I know. Yang Kai's main purpose in entering the severed world with Luo Lan was this shocking void beast. But what he hadn't expected was that he would find traces of a shocking void beast in this situation. What else could it be but a shocking void beast that was proficient in the Tao of Space and could wander freely through the void? As such, even if Yang Kai had never seen this monster beast before, he could instantly determine what it was. It's good that you know. Shui Yu relaxed and snuggled into Yang Kai's arms, assuming a comfortable position and whispering softly, "Now it's up to you, my life is in your hands." Saying so, she directly used some kind of secret technique and fell into a deep sleep. She was an oil lamp that had run out of oil, so she needed to heal her wounds immediately, but the secret technique she used could only be used in a deep sleep. "You trust me so much?" Yang Kai smiled lightly, suddenly filled with a sense of responsibility as he muttered to himself, "Then I can't let you down too much." Saying so, he flipped Shui Yu onto his back and carried her on his back before condensing his Saint Chi into a rope that tightly tied Shui Yu's body to him. After moving his hands and feet to make sure that no matter what he did, he would not be able to throw Shui Yu off his back before turning to look at the shocking void beast. Since Yang Kai appeared, the shocking void beast had not moved. However, on its fat head, its two small eyes flashed a terrifying light as they stared fixedly at Yang Kai. As if to it, Yang Kai was a delicious meal that it could not wait to pounce on. Shocking void beasts were naturally proficient in the Tao of Space, and Yang Kai had just swallowed and absorbed the void spiral, causing his comprehension of the Tao of Space to rise to a new level. On top of that, the amount of space force contained in his body was somewhat uncontrollable, so the aura he exuded naturally made the shocking void beast extremely happy. Staring at each other, Yang Kai's eyes were aggressive while the shocking void beast's eyes did not shrink back. In this boundless void, one man and one beast both felt the other's fighting intent. After a long time, Yang Kai beckoned to the shocking void beast, "I want your monster core, and you want my body. So let's see who gets what they want in the end and who ends up working for the other." It was unknown whether the shocking void beast understood Yang Kai's words or was simply angered by his provocative actions, but in the next moment, it let out a heaven-shaking roar, opened its mouth wide, and sent out a jet of black energy towards Yang Kai like a barrage of cannonballs. The speed of these energy attacks was incredibly fast. After all, they were released by the shocking void beast and were filled with space force. In an instant, they closed the distance limit and bombarded Yang Kai. This was a powerful attack that was enough to threaten an Origin King. Yang Kai's eyes lit up, and in the face of such an attack, not only did he not show any intention of retreating, his fighting spirit instead soared as he flicked his fingers. Secret technique, Space Blade. Asterisk Shio Shio Shio. Asterisk a series of crescent-shaped space blades shot out, meeting the void beast's void roar with unerring accuracy. Space Blade was the only offensive space secret technique that Yang Kai had comprehended, and it had always been one of his trump cards. It had never failed him in every battle and had earned him many battle achievements. After swallowing and fusing with the void spiral, the power of this secret technique had increased several times compared to before. Although the size of the space blades he sent out had not changed, he could now control them more precisely and their lethality had increased significantly. Chapter 1770. The space blade collided with the void beast's void roar. Thunderous booms rang out incessantly as a violent burst of space force erupted. 10 feet in front of Yang Kai, space suddenly collapsed. That space was like a broken wall, shattering into pieces in a very short period of time. Chaotic fluctuations of power surged out and sputtered into the void. From the collapsed space, the void beast's huge body eerily stretched out and opened its mouth to bite Yang Kai. Taking advantage of Yang Kai's distraction, it directly approached him. Yang Kai seemed to have expected this, so he did not panic at all. With a slight movement of his feet, his body was shrouded in space force and gradually turned into a phantom. The void beast bit into empty air. The next moment, Yang Kai appeared above the void beast like a ghost and punched out with all his strength towards its head. Kong. Fist energy burst out and the void beast was smashed to pieces. However, Yang Kai did not feel the slightest joy after having succeeded. Instead, he frowned and hurriedly dodged. The moment he moved, the void beast that should have been smashed to pieces reappeared behind him and opened its bloody mouth again. The void beast that Yang Kai had smashed to pieces before was also just a phantom. The man and the beast were both extremely fast. Using Space Force, their movements were enough to interfere with the enemy's vision. A figure flashed and Yang Kai appeared 1,000 feet away. The void beast also stopped and floated in the void, accurately locating Yang Kai's position and looking at him. After a brief confrontation, the first test made the man and the beast realize that the other party was not a soft persimmon that could be crushed at will. In that case, Yang Kai murmured and grinned, "Then don't blame me for being ruthless." As he spoke, he waved his hand. The next moment, the stone mongoose Xiao Xiao and the artifact spirit Lu Yen, two super helpers, appeared. The stone mongoose carried the heaven-shaking pillar, its small and exquisite body hunched, its eyes darting around, as if it did not know where it was. As soon as Lu Yen appeared, she asked Yang Kai, "Master, what are your orders?" "Kill it." Yang Kai pointed at the void beast 1,000 feet away. Lu Yen looked at the void beast with a solemn expression and said in a deep voice, "It seems to be very powerful." Yang Kai laughed. "If it's not powerful, I can deal with it alone. Why would I call all of you out? It is proficient in Space Force. So you must cooperate with me. Master's orders." Lu Yen nodded and a purple-red flame suddenly appeared on her jade-white hand. There were faint arcs of electricity flickering within it, and a violent force was emitted. "Then let's do it." Yang Kai grinned and his body blurred as he charged toward the void beast again. There was no need to say anything when cooperating with his two helpers because both the stone mongoose and the artifact spirit had a telepathic connection with Yang Kai. They could clearly see through Yang Kai's thoughts and cooperate perfectly with him. As soon as Yang Kai moved, Lu Yen Kai transformed into a ball of fire and followed closely behind Yang Kai. The stone mongoose Lu Yen Kai transformed into a stone giant and dragged the heaven-shaking pillar behind it as it walked through the void, slowly approaching the void beast at a leisurely pace. The void beast was no doubt quite intelligent, so when it saw Yang Kai Lu Yen Kai's two helpers, its beady eyes couldn't help but reveal a look of bewilderment. When it saw Yang Kai and Lu Yen Kai charging toward it, it actually leapt forward. The void in front of it seemed to have turned into a lake, completely concealing its body once it passed through it. Yang Kai Lu Yen Kai's eyes lit up as he sensed the changes in space around him. In the next moment, he gave the stone mongoose Lu Yen Kai a command. The stone mongoose Lu Yen Kai didn't hesitate at all. It let out a deafening roar and swung its heaven-shaking pillar to its left. The heaven-shaking pillar, which weighed several 100,000 kilograms, coupled with the stone mongoose Lu Yen Kai's violent strength, was capable of shattering space itself. The moment the stone mongoose Lu Yen Kai launched his attack, the shocking void beast's head happened to appear right where the heaven-shaking pillar was aimed at. It seemed as if the shocking void beast had taken the initiative to approach the stone mongoose Lu Yen Kai's attack. The shocking void beast obviously intended to attack the stone mongoose first, but its trick was easily seen through by Yang Kai and used to his advantage. At such a close distance, even if the shocking void beast was proficient in the Tao of space, it wouldn't be able to dodge such a sudden attack. If this blow landed on its body, even if the shocking void beast's strength was comparable to an Origin King Realm Master, it would definitely be smashed to pieces. The stone mongoose's full-powered attack was no joke. Yang Kai's eyes lit up as he secretly looked forward to the scene of flesh and blood splattering. But to his extreme surprise, the shocking void beast, facing this fatal blow, actually managed to twist its body and release a rich space force fluctuation from its body that transformed into a void vortex that blocked the stone mongoose's attack. The heaven-shaking pillar smashed the void vortex to pieces and the remaining power swept across the shocking void beast's body, causing blood to spurt out as the shocking void beast was sent flying 1,000 meters away. The place where its head was connected to its neck was a bloody mess with white bones vaguely visible. But in the end, the shocking void beast had survived, and its injuries weren't too serious. I knew it wouldn't be so easy. Yang Kai grit his teeth and shouted as he stretched out his hand and pushed his Saint Chi forward, wrapping Lu Yen in his Saint Chi, and instantly arriving in front of the injured shocking void beast. The next moment, the master and servant pair launched a frantic attack on the shocking void beast. Hundreds of golden blood threads were infused with space force by Yang Kai, forming an inescapable net that completely sealed off a large area of space, cutting off the shocking void beast's escape route. At the same time, Yang Kai madly pushed his space blades towards the shocking void beast. On the other hand, Lu Yan's attack was much simpler. Flames mixed with thunder attribute energy gathered around the shocking void beast like falling petals, each of which contained terrifying power. The shocking void beast's body was scorched black the moment it came into contact with these flames. At the same time, fine arcs of lightning were also scattered across the shocking void beast's body, affecting its movements. For a time, the shocking void beast was forced into a position where it could only dodge and was unable to fight back, only able to roar continuously. Dang 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 dang. The stone mongoose, wrapped in a layer of cold chi, cooperated with Yang Kai and Lu Yen to restrain the shocking void beast, raised the heaven-shaking pillar high and smashed it down again. As soon as this stick struck, the shocking void beast's eyes flashed with fear. It was not afraid of Yang Kai and Lu Yan's methods, but it was extremely wary of the stone mongoose's simple attack. This was a violent attack that even the shocking void beast's space transference secret technique could not resolve. The shocking void beast roared and struggled to resist, constantly using its void roar secret technique to form a dense barrage of attacks towards Yang Kai and his servant. At the same time, a space transference barrier appeared around the shocking void beast's body once again, forcibly withstanding the stone mongoose's attack. The sound of bones breaking rang out, and the shocking void beast's astonishing aura suddenly weakened for a moment. In such a short time, the shocking void beast had suffered too many attacks and was seriously injured. Facing Yang Kai and his servant, who were like wolves and tigers, the shocking void beast knew that it was no match for them. If it did not escape, it would likely die here. The shocking void beast began desperately urging its space force to interfere with the surrounding space. The hundreds of golden blood threads that had been scattered by Yang Kai were affected and could no longer remain stable, showing flaws. Lu Yen also cried out in alarm, his body covered in thunder fire as he carefully guarded against the shocking void beast's counterattack. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the shocking void beast leapt out and escaped several dozen meters in an instant, breaking free of Yang Kai and his servant's encirclement. "You want to run?" Yang Kai coldly snorted and was about to give chase when the shocking void beast used the same trick again and plunged into the void in front of it, disappearing. Yang Kai frowned and pushed his space force to its limit, but was unable to detect the shocking void beast's aura nearby. Soon, a look of understanding appeared on his face as he muttered, "It actually escaped." The shocking void beast had obviously escaped from the void, so Yang Kai was unable to detect its existence here. Without hesitation, Yang Kai immediately recalled the stone mongoose and Lu Yen and arrived at the spot where the shocking void beast had disappeared. Reaching into the void with both hands, Yang Kai tore at both sides. A void crack suddenly appeared. Yang Kai dove straight in. The next moment, he returned to the severed world. Yang Kai immediately began searching for traces of the shocking void beast. This strange ancient monster beast could freely wander through the void, so if he did not follow it in time, it would be easy for it to escape. The shocking void beast's roar rang out in Yang Kai's ears, and there was a sense of panic in its voice, as if it was being tortured by something. Yang Kai frowned and turned towards the source of the roar, the scene that entered his eyes causing his expression to change slightly. Not far in front of him, a black curtain covered a large area, and inside this black curtain, there were countless faces struggling, twisting, and changing. These faces were like Yin souls, and the area enveloped by the black curtain seemed to be a place where Yin souls gathered, exuding an evil and cold aura. Through this black curtain, Yang Kai could vaguely see the huge figure of the shocking void beast, but at this moment, it was surrounded by countless soul-like creatures, each of which had their mouths latched onto its body and were biting into its flesh. At a rate visible to the naked eye, the shocking void beast's body began to dry up, as if its flesh and blood essence were being sucked dry by these souls. No matter how hard the shocking void beast struggled, it was unable to escape from this black curtain. It was obviously at the end of its rope. Heh. A burst of strange laughter suddenly came from nearby. Yang Kai's face could not help sinking as he secretly pushed his Saint Chi and looked towards the source of the sound vigilantly. Over there, a figure shrouded in darkness stood quietly, and in the darkness, there seemed to be a pair of chilling eyes that were staring at Yang Kai. "It's you," Yang Kai muttered, his expression becoming dignified. Chapter 1771. Yang Kai recognized at a glance that this person wrapped in darkness was an Origin King Realm Master he had paid attention to before. This guy seemed to have paid attention to him before entering the Severed World, and Ni Guang had also said that this person was very dangerous and it was best not to provoke him easily. Yang Kai did not expect to meet the other party here. What's more, the other party had used some kind of method to trap his prey. The black curtain that enveloped the shocking void beast was obviously the other party's artifact. However, this artifact exuded an evil aura, and at a glance, it was obvious it was the kind of artifact that required the sacrifice of a large number of lives to refine. It was obvious that the owner of this artifact was not a kind person, and the number of people who had died at his hands was likely innumerable. Kai Yang's brow wrinkled. The current situation was not good for him. Although he was not too afraid of this guy with his background, the shocking void beast was now within the range of the other party's artifact. Yang Kai had worked so hard to seriously injure the shocking void beast, but now someone else had taken advantage of him, which was something he could not tolerate. However, if he rushed into the black curtain and snatched the shocking void beast's monster core, it would not be appropriate. Yang Kai wasn't afraid of the other party and was confident he could escape from under the other party's nose, but that didn't mean he could resist the other party's artifact head-on. If he really rushed into the black curtain, Yang Kai estimated his end wouldn't be much better than the shocking void beast's. What should I do? How can I get the shocking void beast's monster core without angering the other party? Yang Kai thought hard in his heart but could not come up with a suitable answer. Hehehehe. Just as Yang Kai's thoughts were racing, the Origin King Realm Master wrapped in the black shadow let out an intriguing laugh again, as if he was in a good mood. Immediately after, he said, "Young boy, your luck with women isn't shallow. Even in this kind of place, you actually have such a beauty. This old master is truly envious." As soon as these words came out, Yang Kai's face could not help changing. The other party had called out his surname as soon as he spoke. Obviously, this man recognized him, but Yang Kai could not remember when he had interacted with such an Origin King Realm Master. The number of Origin King Realm Masters Yang Kai had encountered so far was not too many, and he had an impression of every single one of them, but none of them matched the one in front of him. Yang Kai stared at him calmly. He asked tentatively, "Senior, do you recognize me?" "Of course this old master recognizes you." "Hehe, what's wrong? Have you forgotten this old master, boy?" the Origin King Realm Master said in a mocking tone. Yang Kai looked at him and didn't feel any malice from him. He pondered for a moment. Then he cupped his fists and said, "Forgive me for not recognizing Senior. Since Senior recognizes me, why don't you show me your true face? It's natural that you can't recognize me. After all, my aura has changed a lot compared to back then." The other party didn't seem to be impatient at all. He nodded slightly and said, "Take a closer look at who this old man is," he said. The black chi that had been enveloping him quickly dissipated like a receding tide. In the next moment, the other party's face was imprinted in Yang Kai's eyes. Yang Kai was taken aback as he stared at him in a daze, asking in amazement, "Senior Guzu, how could it be you?" After the black chi dissipated, Yang Kai immediately recognized who the other party was. This Origin King Realm Master was the first Origin King Yang Kai met when he first entered the Star Territory, the one who called himself Guizhu, who had been trapped on the floating continent for 2,000 years. Guizhu was accidentally swallowed by a void vortex back then. He ended up on the floating continent and ended up there for 2,000 years. During these 2,000 years, he broke through from the Saint King Realm all the way to the Origin King Realm. He had become a legend. However, for 2,000 years, he had been alone on the floating continent until Yang Kai and the others also ended up there. At that time, Guizhu had been studying space arrays, trying to use them to teleport out of the floating continent, but unfortunately he failed. In the end, he had to rely on Yang Kai's attainments in the Tao of space to escape. At that time, a total of 7 people had escaped. In addition to Guizhu and Yang Kai, there was also Yuxi and her 2 disciples, as well as Shin Tu, the son of Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce's president AIO, and another woman. The past was like a puff of smoke, but it was the first important thing Yang Kai experienced after entering the Star Territory, so how could he forget? Guizhu was the first Origin King Realm Master he had ever met, so his memory of him was still fresh. However, Yang Kai had never imagined that he would meet the other party in such a place. Although Guizhu was cruel and had a violent personality, he was a man who clearly distinguished between gratitude and grudges. Back then, he had accepted Yang Kai's life-saving grace, so after leaving the floating continent, he had kept his promise and let Yang Kai go, even giving him a Star Emperor token as a thank-you gift. Without that Star Emperor token, Yang Kai would not have been able to kill Luo Hai on Scarlet Wave Star. So, after learning that the other party turned out to be Guizhu, Yang Kai's vigilance immediately relaxed and he grinned at Guizhu, a look of surprise and happiness appearing on his face. Of course it is this old master. Guizhu's mood was not bad, grinning meaningfully as he looked Yang Kai up and down, nodding lightly and saying in amazement, "Boy, you're quite amazing. How long has it been since we last met? You've actually cultivated to the 3rd Order Origin returning realm. This old master remembers that you were just a saint back then, right?" "2nd Order Saint." Yang Kai replied with a grin. "Senior Guizhu's memory is quite good." Guizhu nodded. "It seems that your opportunities over the years have not been small. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for you to have such achievements." "It was all thanks to Senior's blessing," Yang Kai replied. "How has Senior been these years?" "How else could I have been? I can't compare to you young people," Guizhu teased. As he spoke, he glanced over at Shuiyu, who was sleeping behind Yang Kai, his words full of meaning. Yang Kai smiled awkwardly. That was an accident. After thinking about it for a moment, Yang Kai suddenly said, "By the way, Senior, have you managed to get your revenge?" Back then, Guizhu had said that after leaving the floating continent, what he wanted to do was take revenge. Before arriving on the floating continent, he seemed to have been framed by someone who was extremely powerful, and with his strength at the time, he was powerless to do anything, but after breaking through to the Origin King realm, he vowed to avenge his past shame. Now that so many years had passed, Yang Kai wondered if his wish had been fulfilled. Guizhu's expression became gloomy as he fell silent for a while before shaking his head and saying, "This old master's revenge is not so easy to avenge." "What's wrong? Boy, do you want to help this old master?" "Senior must be joking." Yang Kai quickly waved his hand. "Junior's strength is too low. How could he help Senior? If he were to become a burden to Senior, even 10,000 deaths would not be enough to atone for it." He did not dare to agree casually. Although he and Guizhu had some friendship before, he naturally would not rashly intervene in this kind of matter. "Heh, it's just a joke, don't take it so seriously," Guizhu chuckled. "But you don't need to belittle yourself, boy. You were able to seriously injure this shocking void beast, so this old master has some idea of your strength." Yang Kai rubbed his nose but did not respond. As the two of them spoke, the shocking void beast had already been tortured to the point of being unable to bear the sight of it. Countless human faces that seemed like spirits were pouncing and biting its body, devouring its flesh, blood, and essence. causing its body to ceaselessly shrivel up. However, no matter how it struggled, it was unable to escape the envelopment of the black veil of light, so all its resistance was in vain. By this time, the shocking void beast's screams had gradually become inaudible and its struggles had also become weaker and weaker. After a while, the shocking void beast finally stopped moving, leaving behind only the countless ghostly faces that howled and shuttled through the black curtain, a terrifying sight to behold. Guizhou stretched out his hand and the black curtain immediately turned into a black flag that flew back into his hand. Seeing this black flag, Yang Kai suddenly understood. He had seen Guizhou use this black flag-like artifact back on the floating continent, but at that time, how could this artifact possess such power? It was obvious that Guizhou had used some unknown method to greatly enhance this artifact's power over the years. The black banner flew back, and the black curtain that covered the sky also disappeared. Only the shriveled body of the shocking void beast was left behind. As the wind blew, the shocking void beast's fur actually turned into powder, revealing the bones inside. Its bones seemed to have become extremely fragile and under the influence of external forces, they were reduced to dust. Amidst the dust, there was only a small rolling object about the size of a fist that exuded an inexplicable luster. Yang Kai's eyes lit up as he stared at this object with fiery eyes. Guizhou chuckled, stretched out his hand, and sent this object flying over to Yang Kai. "If you want it, just tell this old master, what's there to be embarrassed about?" Yang Kai couldn't help feeling overjoyed and quickly accepted the monster core. After examining it for a while, he confirmed that it was indeed the monster core of a shocking void beast and that it was completely undamaged. The energy contained in this monster core had not leaked out in the slightest before smiling and saying, "Many thanks, Senior. It was yours to begin with." Guizhou didn't care. This old master also knows that you are proficient in the Tao of space, so naturally, you would leave this monster core behind. With it, your attainments in the Tao of space will be further improved, yes? Yang Kai didn't conceal anything and nodded. My purpose in coming here was to obtain this shocking void beast's monster core, and now I've obtained what I wanted. Boy, your courage is quite big, daring to enter this damned place. Guizhou looked at Yang Kai with some admiration. Since you've obtained what you wanted, I wonder if you can help this old master achieve the same? What can Senior help with? If this junior can help, he will not refuse. Yang Kai carefully put away the shocking void beast's monster core before turning to Guizhou with a solemn expression. Although Guizhou didn't look like a good person, to be honest, he gave Yang Kai a good feeling. Especially after this meeting, Guizhou seemed quite approachable and amiable, so Yang Kai decided to return the favor. Chapter 1772. What's more, Guizhou was so powerful that even Ni Guang feared him, so building a good relationship with him was not a bad thing. Perhaps Yang Kai would need his help in the future. There is a place that requires your help to enter, Guizhou nodded. With this old master's strength alone, he doesn't dare to rush in. And come with me. Guizhou was a straightforward person, so after saying so, he led the way. Yang Kai stretched out his hand and supported Shui Yu on his back so that she could lean better against him before hurriedly following. Along the way, after chatting for a while, Yang Kai learned that Guizhou had been following him since the moment he entered the Severed World. After all, there were many void cracks inside the Severed World, and only those who were proficient in Space Force could travel through them safely. Guizhou happened to know that Yang Kai had great attainments in the Tao of space. Guizhou's original plan was to find an opportunity to abduct Yang Kai from Ni Guang and Luo Lan and then take him to explore the Severed World together, but after entering here, he was unable to find Yang Kai immediately and only vaguely determined the direction Yang Kai was heading, so he had been tailing him. However, there was an accident later and he lost track of Yang Kai. That was until just now when Yang Kai suddenly rushed out of a void crack and appeared in front of him. It seems that Senior and I are fated to meet. Yang Kai laughed after listening to his explanation. The void crack that connected the Severed World to the void crack was impossible to predict. The shocking void beast had been injured and fled, but it just so happened to appear in front of Guizhou. This old master was also quite surprised. I thought that I couldn't count on you. Guizhou wrapped himself in black qi again. No one could see his face clearly, but from his tone, it was clear that this encounter was a pleasant surprise for Guizhou. By the way, senior, where are you taking me? A Medicine Valley. Guizhou ran ahead and replied without turning his head. When this old man passed by that place, I saw many rare spirit herbs. Unfortunately, that damned place is full of spatial cracks. This old man didn't dare to rashly enter. I only collected a few enlightenment flowers before I had to retreat. Enlightenment flower? Yang Kai's eyes lit up. Enlightenment flower. That was an origin grade mid-rank spirit herb. Moreover, there were only a few of them in the entire territory of the Star Realm. This was because the laws of heaven and earth were not suitable for the growth of this kind of ancient spirit herb. Only in the environment of ancient times could the enlightenment flower survive. In the severed world, it could be said that there was a trace of ancient aura everywhere, so it was not surprising that there were enlightenment flowers here. It was an ancient spirit herb. Whether it was used to refine the enlightenment pill or consumed directly, it was of great help to an Origin King Realm cultivator in improving their strength and state of mind. No wonder even with Guizhou's cultivation he could not forget that place. It turned out that he had obtained several enlightenment flowers there. And in addition to the enlightenment flowers, there are many other good things there. There are some things this old master does not recognize, but that is definitely a paradise for an Origin King Realm cultivator. If I can really obtain enough benefits from that place, this old master is confident he can break through to the third order Origin King Realm in this lifetime. Guizhou's voice contained a hint of fanaticism. Hearing him say this, Yang Kai's brow rose as he secretly speculated that Guizhou should already be a second order Origin King. Otherwise, he would not have said he wanted to break through to the third order. It seemed that Enai Guang's fear of him was not unreasonable. After this old master withdrew from that place, he wanted to see if he could find you. If there is anyone here who can safely enter that Medicine Valley, I'm afraid it's you. This old master did not have much hope, and it can only be said that this old master's luck was quite good. Guizhou said, then it should be the Medicine Valley uncle and I was talking about. As soon as Guizhou's voice fell, Shuiyu's voice came from behind Yang Kai. Her voice was still a little weak, but it did not sound like she had suffered any serious injuries. You're awake? Yang Kai turned his head and glanced at her, finding that Shuiyu's face had become much rosier. It seemed that her healing secret technique was indeed quite extraordinary, allowing her to stabilize her injuries in such a short time. I was in a daze a moment ago, but now I'm awake, Shuiyu nodded. She did not show any intention of getting down from Yang Kai's back, instead hugging him tighter, enjoying the warmth of Yang Kai's care. She then glanced at Guizhou suspiciously and asked Yang Kai vigilantly, This is Senior Guizhou. Yang Kai chuckled. Don't worry, Senior and I are old acquaintances. Jie. Guizhou laughed strangely. Little girl, you are young, but you have many thoughts. If this old master really wanted to kill you, would you still be alive? Rest assured, as your sweetheart said, we are old acquaintances. Encountering each other in this damned place can be considered an old acquaintance. This old master has no malice towards you. Hearing the word, sweetheart, Shuiyu's neck could not help blushing slightly, but a smile appeared at the corners of her mouth as she softly said, Senior is magnanimous. This little girl is currently injured, so please forgive her for not being able to greet you properly. It's fine. Guizhou did not care, glancing at Shuiyu thoughtfully, but little girl, you are Shuiyu of Hengluo Chamber of Commerce, right? Shuiyu's expression could not help changing, but she quickly recovered and nodded. How did Senior see through me? She had used an artifact to change her appearance and physique, so her appearance in front of others was completely different from her original one. What's more, this artifact was made by an artifact refining grandmaster of Hengluo Chamber of Commerce, so unless one had a peak third-order Origin King cultivation, it would be impossible to see through it. Shuiyu did not know how Guizhou had seen through her identity at a glance. This old master is not a fool, Guizhou chuckled. There are only a few people who have entered the severed world, And you're wearing the same clothes as Shui Yu and just called out, Uncle? If this old master still didn't know about you, wouldn't this old master have lived all these years in vain? Gui Zhu said with a look of relief. He had been very curious about the origins of the woman Yang Kai was carrying. After all, when he entered the severed world before, he had not seen her. Later on, through various clues, he finally understood. So that's how it is. Shui Yu nodded, understanding that Gui Zhu being able to recognize her was not because he was powerful, but because she had exposed too many flaws. The dignified Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce's third young master is actually a woman. That's quite surprising. Gui Zhu clicked his tongue in wonder. Senior, Shui Yu has some secrets, so she doesn't want anyone to know her identity as a woman, so I hope Senior can keep this a secret. Yang Kai chuckled meaningfully. You also know how big Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce is. If this matter were to spread, this old master is not a gossipy person. Gui Zhu smiled contemptuously. Whether she's a man or a woman has nothing to do with this old master. Many thanks, Senior. Shui Yu bit her red lips lightly and thanked him. After thinking about it for a moment, she leaned over to Yang Kai and whispered into his ear, I'd better change my appearance, otherwise if I meet someone again, they may see through my disguise again. As you wish. Yang Kai nodded. Shui Yu stretched out her hand and tapped a certain part of her chest, pushing her Saint Qi into the artifact she wore to change her appearance and body shape once again, transforming her into her previous male appearance. Little girl, what you said just now, does your Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce know where the Medicine Valley is? Gui Zhu asked again. Shui Yu nodded gently. Shui Yu gently nodded. Our Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce has known about the existence of that Medicine Valley for a long time. Every time the severed world opens, some people will come and occasionally obtain some gains. However, because there are too many void cracks in that place, no one dares to venture too deep. Our original goal was that Medicine Valley, but we encountered many illusionary void butterflies and got separated from Uncle and I. So it's not a secret. Gui Zhu was disappointed. Young boy, it looks like we'll have to speed up, otherwise if someone else gets there first, we won't even be able to drink the soup. And let this old master carry you. Saying so, Gui Zhu formed a seal with his hands and summoned his 10,000 soul banner. In the next moment, the 10,000 soul banner wrapped the three of them up and transformed into a streak of black light that shot forward at double their original speed. Gui Zhu being able to discover this Medicine Valley was a coincidence. He did not have any special purpose in entering the severed world, only hearing that there were many good things here that could help Origin King Realm Masters enhance their strength, so he took the risk to explore. While tracking down Yang Kai, Gui Zhu happened to pass by the Medicine Valley and found several enlightenment flowers. Unfortunately, even with his powerful strength, he did not dare to rush in and could only reluctantly retreat. Now that he had brought Yang Kai with him, Gui Zhu was naturally complacent and was ready to go in and wash the place in blood. The Medicine Valley was not too far from where he met Yang Kai, but it was definitely not close either. It took the three of them a full day to reach their destination. The 10,000 soul banner was withdrawn, revealing the figures of the three. However, after Gui Zhu released his divine sense to investigate the surroundings, his face could not help sinking as he coldly snorted, Sure enough, there are many people here. Within a 100-kilometer radius of this place, there were many Origin Kings gathered. Yang Kai did not know how these people learned about this place, or if, like Gui Zhu, they had stumbled upon this place. Yang Kai only glanced around casually when he saw the figures of Purple Star's Sect Master, Zilong, and Young Master, Zidong. Both of them had the same long purple hair and were extremely conspicuous on a small hillside. In addition to them, Su Wei, who had plotted against Yang Kai before, was also here. Even Kong Fa had come. The two of them were still in cahoots, but Kong Fa seemed to be seriously injured, his face slightly pale. It seemed that under the attack of the illusionary void butterflies, he had not been able to gain any advantage and had barely managed to preserve his life. Shui Yu. Not far to the right, a nervous and joyful voice called out. Yang Kai turned his head and found that Enai Guang was rushing over while staring vigilantly at Guizhou. Behind him, Luo Lan followed closely. Chapter 1773. Uncle and I. Shui Yu called out in surprise from Yang Kai's back. In this damned place, there was nothing happier than seeing one's loved ones. Although she felt at ease when she was with Yang Kai, she was still worried about Enai Guang's safety. Now that she saw Enai Guang unharmed, Shui Yu naturally relaxed. What's going on here? Enai Guang didn't walk too close and instead stood about 10 meters away from Yang Kai and the others, asking while looking at Guizhou vigilantly. He was afraid that Yang Kai and Shui Yu had been captured by Guizhou, and if that were the case, his actions would definitely be restricted. Enai Guang not having such thoughts wasn't because he wanted to be cautious, but rather because Guizhou was obviously an evil person. Anyone with a little common sense would think so. Uncle and I doesn't need to worry, I'm just a little injured, it's nothing serious, Shui Yu answered as she slid down from Yang Kai's back. Hearing what she said, Enai Guang's expression relaxed slightly as he looked at Yang Kai, then at Shui Yu, and finally at Guizhou. After confirming that the other party had not done anything to Shui Yu, Enai Guang cupped his fists slightly and asked, "May I ask who this friend is?" In any case, Guizhou had come with Shui Yu, so Enai Guang had to ask about the other party's identity. Guizhou laughed strangely, his laughter extremely harsh. "You don't need to ask this old master's name or origin. This old master has no intention of joining forces with you. Take your family's juniors and do what you need to do. There's no need to pay attention to this old master." He didn't put Enai Guang in his eyes at all, his tone extremely arrogant and annoying. Yang Kai rubbed his nose to the side. Enai Guang's face couldn't help sinking slightly as he snorted, his expression extremely displeased. He held a high position in Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce and was well known throughout the entire Star Territory. Those with lower cultivation than him all treated him with respect, and even those with the same cultivation as him, with the exception of Zi Long and a few others, no one dared to be so rude to him. Guizhou's words obviously made him a little unhappy. As such, he immediately lost interest in chatting with Shui Yu and said coldly, "Let's go." Shui Yu opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She just glanced at Yang Kai and said, "You have to be careful." Yang Kai smiled and nodded. With the current situation, it was impossible for him to stay with Shui Yu. Shui Yu would definitely follow Enai Guang while he would act together with Guizhou. "Yang Kai, you're not coming?" Luo Lan seemed to have noticed something and asked in surprise. Yang Kai shook his head, pondered for a moment, and said, "I have some matters to attend to with this Senior Luo. I'm afraid our previous agreement will be voided. If there's a chance in the future, I'll make it up to you." "So that's how it is." Luo Lan smiled. "It's fine. I wasn't fully prepared this time, and I've dragged you down. Since you've received help from a benefactor, then I wish you good luck." She had a very amiable look on her face. She did not blame Yang Kai for suddenly changing his mind and not acting with her. Little brat, asking a tiger for its skin is destined to not have a good end. Think about it carefully. Enai Guang glanced at Yang Kai coldly and secretly warned him. "Many thanks for Senior's concern, Junior understands." Yang Kai cupped his fists. Guizhou laughed strangely to the side, making him even more obvious that he was not a good person. Enai Guang and Luo Lan took Shui Yu back to where they were originally. On the way, Enai Guang naturally asked about the situation after they separated, but Shui Yu did not say much. She only told Enai Guang that she and Yang Kai had spent a lot of effort to get rid of the illusionary void butterflies and then encountered Guizhou. As for what happened in the void, Shui Yu did not dare to say anything. "This person is called Guizhou?" Enai Guang frowned. "Why have I never heard of such a character in Star Territory? Elder Luo, have you ever heard of this person?" "This mistress has never heard of him." Luo Lan shook her head. "Strange. How could a second-order origin king remain unknown all this time? Especially since this person's aura is so special." Enai Guangru couldn't figure out why he had never heard of the name Guizhou before. This person seemed to have jumped out of a rock without any warning, but his sudden appearance was simply too shocking. "Uncle and I, what's the situation here?" Shuiyu asked in a timely manner. "The situation doesn't look good. That bastard Kong Ifei followed this old master and elder Luo all the way to this medicine valley. After he arrived here, he used a secret technique to call Su Wei over. Zilong already knew the location of this medicine valley, and old man Meng Tong also came here. I don't know where he got this information from, but he also came here." Meng Tong. Shuiyu frowned as she turned her eyes in a certain direction and saw a short old man squinting his eyes and looking around like a thief, looking quite comical. However, this person was a genuine Origin King Realm Master, and although he was only a First Order Origin King, he was at the peak of the First Order. It was rumored that Meng Tong had broken through to the Origin King realm 1,000 years ago, but had never had the opportunity to break through to the Second Order. If he could obtain some kind of opportunity, breaking through would only take a blink of an eye. Meng Tong's origins were very mysterious, and no one knew where he came from. What's more, this person had not attached himself to any great force and had always cultivated alone. It was extremely difficult for a cultivator who did not belong to any sect to cultivate to a high realm because there was no one to guide them, so they had to rely on themselves to find their way forward. It was very likely that they would make mistakes along the path of cultivation and fall short of success. Not to mention this, a cultivator who did not belong to any sect had no resources to rely on, so they had to rely on themselves to find what they needed to cultivate, wasting a lot of time. As such, the achievements of such a cultivator would generally not be too high. Being able to cultivate to the origin returning realm was already quite remarkable. Meng Tong, on the other hand, was an Origin King. It could be seen that his luck and opportunities in this life were quite good, and coupled with his perseverance and perception, he was able to achieve his current achievements. Therefore, although Meng Tong's cultivation was not the highest in Star Territory, his reputation was quite high. This was because the cultivator who did not belong to any sect regarded him as a goal to strive for and an object of worship, and the base number of such cultivators was very large. Purple Star, Sword Union, Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, all the great forces in the star field had once extended an olive branch to Meng Tong, wanting to recruit him, promising him great benefits and the status of an elder. Unfortunately, Meng Tong had never agreed to any of them and had always been a lone wolf, not even accepting a disciple. In a sense, he was another legend in Star Territory. He did not become hostile to any great force, nor did he get too close to any of them, living a very comfortable life. Sometimes, Ni Guang envied Meng Tong's life and yearned for it. However, if he really had to abandon everything and live like Meng Tong, he would not be willing. Among the cultivator who entered the Severed World this time, Meng Tong was also among them, and he had even come to the treasure house of the Severed World. No matter how he came here, it was obvious that his luck was extraordinary. Counting Meng Tong and Ge Zhu, who had just arrived, there were as many as 7 Origin Kings present. This number accounted for at least 60% to 70% of the cultivator who entered the Severed World, and if those who died in the Severed World were also counted, the Origin Kings who came to the Medicine Valley might account for 80% of the total number of people still alive. The spirit medicines in the periphery of the Medicine Valley have been divided up. Ni Guang gestured to the huge mountain valley ahead. Divided up? Shuiyu was stunned. How was the harvest? Ni Guang smiled slightly. Not bad. Although there weren't many, all of them were rare treasures. While the two were talking, Luolan also touched her space ring, as if she had gained a lot. The remaining spirit medicines are hidden inside, but we can't enter for the time being. Ni Guang continued. Shuiyu stared at the huge mountain valley in front of her and saw that it was shrouded in a dazzling 7-colored light. This light was like flowing water that filled the entire mountain valley, making it look like the huge Medicine Valley was covered in a multicolored tide. Shuiyu felt a fatal threat from the light that seemed to have condensed into a solid substance. 7-colored radiant light? Shuiyu's face sank as she called out the name of this 7-colored light. Given her status, it was obvious that she knew something about the Medicine Valley. Indeed. Ni Guang gently nodded. This is the seven-colored radiant light produced by the divine bird, the seven-colored radiant peacock. This light ignores all defenses, and whether it is artifacts, secret techniques, or spiritual energy, nothing can stop it. Once enveloped in this light, no matter how high one's cultivation is, it will not take long for them to die. It is extremely terrifying. Then how do we get in? Luo Lan asked worriedly. Although she had followed Enai Guang here a long time ago and had some gains, she still knew nothing about this place. This was the first time she had heard of the seven-colored radiant peacock, and the first time she had heard of the seven-colored radiant light. This light that even Enai Guang felt powerless against was something she could not resolve. Wait! Enai Guang quickly said, this light is produced by the divine bird when it breathes in. Once it absorbs it back, we can enter. Inside this medicine valley, there are countless void cracks. Although there are dangers everywhere, these void cracks are also the best natural barriers. When it breathes out again and spits out the seven-colored radiant light, we only need to find a void crack, hide behind it, and rely on the existence of this void crack to avoid it. Hearing what he said, Luo Lan showed a look of sudden realization. While explaining, Enai Guang suddenly frowned and turned a serious look toward Shuiyu. What's wrong? Shuiyu wore a stunned expression. Enai Guang did not speak but instead stared intently at a certain part of her hair. A moment later, he suddenly snorted coldly, gritted his teeth, and shouted, "Despicable!" As he spoke, he flicked his finger and sent out a stream of pure energy toward Shuiyu. That sound was like the sound of something inhaling when it was asleep. This sound was like a rolling thunder, like a drum, and was both dull and shocking. Almost all of the Origin Kings present were shocked. The moment they heard this sound, all of them could not help frowning. As for Enai Guang, Luo Lan, Zilong, and the others, their spirits shook as they secretly pushed their Saint Qi. The next moment, though, a sudden change occurred. The originally calm mountain valley was suddenly swept up by a gust of wind. This gust of wind came from the outside and blew straight into the depths of the mountain valley. At the same time, the sound of inhalation became more and more obvious. Accompanied by this sound, the seven-colored radiant light that had been shrouding the mountain valley seemed to be attracted by something and receded like a tide. In the blink of an eye, the scenery outside the mountain valley was exposed to everyone's vision. Asterisk Xiao Xiao Xiao. Asterisk at that moment, Enai Guang, Luo Lan, and Zilong, the three Origin Kings, all shot out like arrows from a bow, chasing after the receding seven-colored radiant light and rushing into the mountain valley. Seeing them move, Kong Fa, Su Wei, and Meng Tong, who had been watching from the sidelines, could no longer hold back and use their movement skills, transforming into streams of light that shot off in different directions. Gazoo also laughed as he summoned his 10,000 soul banner, wrapped Yang Kai in it, and rushed forward. His cultivation was profound, and among all the Origin Kings present, only Enai Guang and Zilong could compare to him, so his speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed a distance of 10 kilometers. Inside the mountain valley, there were countless void cracks, large and small, scattered everywhere. These cracks were like scars in the heavens and earth, eternally adorning the landscape. There were even more void cracks that were hidden. Some could be detected by divine sense while others were completely untraceable. Enai Guang and Zilong both carried artifacts that could detect void cracks, and at this moment, both of them were relying on these artifacts to push forward, constantly changing direction to avoid the location of void cracks. As for the other Origin Kings who were not prepared in advance, they released their divine senses to the greatest extent to avoid danger. After only 10 breaths of time, the difference in speed between everyone was obvious. Although they rushed into the mountain valley almost at the same time, Enai Guang and Zilong were undoubtedly far ahead. Gui Zhu's speed was even more exaggerated. With Yang Kai pointing the way for him, he did not need to worry about the threat of void cracks at all. All he needed to do was follow the direction Yang Kai pointed out, so it only took him a short time to overtake Enai Guang and Zilong, leaving them far behind. That bastard! Zilong looked at Guizu's figure in the distance and could not help cursing. It was unknown how many years it would take for the severed world to open. The spirit grasses and medicines contained inside were all ancient species that had long since gone extinct. Every time the severed world opened, this medicine valley would produce a large number of rare herbs. It could be said that whoever had the advantage in speed would be able to reap the best harvest. Zilong had thought that his biggest competitor this time would be Ni Guang, but he had not expected that Guizu would suddenly appear out of nowhere and catch him off guard. Does that idiot want to die? Zidong, who was following Zilong, also looked forward in amazement, rushing so fast. Once he touches a hidden void crack, even if he's an origin king, he won't be able to bear the consequences. Don't worry about him. Zilong coldly snorted. If he wants to court death, let him. Zidong thought about it for a moment and agreed. Those who rushed quickly in this medicine valley might not necessarily have good harvests, and they might even die quickly. Immediately, Zidong calmed down. On the other side, Ni Guang, who was almost at the same pace as Zilong, also shook his head and sighed. Shuiyu, I'm afraid that little brat's fate is grim. That guy named Guizu doesn't know how dangerous this place is, so how could he have a good end? That shouldn't be the case. Shuiyu shook her head. Shuiyu shook her head. She knew what Yang Kai and Guizu were relying on, but she didn't explain. Only Luo Lan sighed softly. If Yang Kai had been present at this time, the situation would have been much better, but unfortunately, Yang Kai was not with her. It's about time. Releasing his divine sense and confirming that there was no one within a few dozen kilometers, Guizu suddenly reduced his speed, revealing himself and Yang Kai. HM? There's a medicinal fragrance. Yang Kai suddenly sniffed and said in shock. Haha, it looks like we've already gained something. Guizu chuckled and then turned serious. Guizu chuckled before his expression became solemn and he said, Young boy, this old master will tell you first, whatever we find in this medicine valley, we'll split it evenly. This old master won't take advantage of you. What do you think? As senior says, Yang Kai nodded readily. In this kind of place, although Guizu had to rely heavily on Yang Kai's attainments in the Tao of space, that did not mean that without Yang Kai, Guizu would be unable to move freely. It was just that if he was alone, his speed would be much slower. So, for Guizu, the proposal of dividing the harvest equally was a bit of a loss, so of course Yang Kai wouldn't object. Over there. Yang Kai confirmed the source of the medicinal fragrance before suddenly pointing in a certain direction. As soon as he said so, he rushed over with Guizu following closely behind. A dozen breaths later, the two of them arrived in front of a fruit tree that was only about half the height of a person. The branches and leaves on the fruit tree were not dense, and were even somewhat sparse. There were only a few scattered conical leaves, and the branches of the fruit tree also seemed to be too weak to withstand the wind. On the branches of this fruit tree, four maroon fruits the size of a baby's fist hung neatly. The fruits shone with light, and the skin of the fruit was crystal clear. One could see the sweet flesh inside, and it was enough to make one's appetite whet at a glance. An inexplicable aura lingered around these four fruits, as if they were emitting it from their own bodies. Guizu's whole body was wrapped in black qi, but his eyes seemed to shine brightly as they shone brightly. At a glance, he could tell that these four fruits were extraordinary. These were definitely spirit fruits that would greatly enhance his strength. Divine Nirvana fruit. Yang Kai had been observing this fruit for a long time, and at the same time, his knowledge of the various spirit grasses and medicines he had mastered in his mind. After a while, he finally confirmed what these fruits were and could not help muttering to himself. These are divine nirvana fruits? Guizu raised his brow and asked in surprise, the kind of spirit fruit that can be used to refine the great nirvana pill? He had obviously heard of the divine nirvana fruit before and knew what kind of pill it could be used to refine. The two of them once again used this characteristic to find a palm-sized spirit mushroom. This spirit mushroom grew in a crack in the rocks and was extremely difficult to find. If it weren't for the rich medicinal fragrance, the two of them would have missed it. Demon melting mushroom. Now, without Yang Kai's reminder, Guizhu recognized the name of this spirit medicine and couldn't help feeling excited. This is actually a demon melting mushroom. Hehehe, this old master's luck is really good. Congratulations, senior. This demon melting mushroom seems to be at least 2,000 years old. If it was used to refine a demon-suppressing pill, I estimate that even origin kings would fight over it. Yang Kai cupped his fists and said with a smile. Guizhu glanced at Yang Kai and said, "Good, this thing is of great use to this old master, so this old master will take it first. If we find anything else later, no matter what it is, you'll get an extra share." "Young boy, is that all right with you?" Naturally, Yang Kai replied straightforwardly. The main role of the demon-melting mushroom was to resolve heart demons. When a cultivator was cultivating or breaking through, heart demons would occasionally appear. These heart demons were the negative shadows that lurked in everyone's heart. Seeing the strong bully the weak and not pulling out a blade to help out of fear could become a heart demon. Being bullied and not being able to take revenge could become a heart demon. The death of one's beloved and the depression in one's heart could also become a heart demon. Heart demons was a general term that encompassed the various flaws and negative emotions in a cultivator's heart. They were extremely harmful. Normally, heart demons wouldn't have much of an impact on a cultivator, but as a cultivator's strength increased, the degree of harm from heart demons would also increase, especially when breaking through. The power of heart demons would be infinitely magnified, and once they couldn't be suppressed, the breakthrough would fail. In the best-case scenario, one's cultivation would fall, and in the worst-case scenario, one would become the demon race and be consigned to eternal damnation. Therefore, when a high-level cultivator attempted to break through, they would be fully prepared. One of these preparations was to prevent and resolve heart demons. The simplest method was to take some spirit pills. Demon-suppressing pills refined from demon-melting mushrooms were the best pills for suppressing heart demons. Even if they weren't refined into pills, simply taking a piece of demon-melting mushroom in one's mouth would have a miraculous effect when breaking through. Guizhu was now a second-order origin king, so if he wanted to break through to the third-order origin king realm, it would be extremely difficult. Just how heaven-defying is that? Guizhu could hardly imagine what kind of sect this was, to have 3 origin king-grade alchemists at its helm. With such masters, wouldn't the disciples of this sect have no shortage of pills? If this news were to spread, Guizhu was certain that the entire territory of Tongxian realm would be in turmoil. Behemoths like Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce, Purple Star, and Sword Union would definitely send people to win over Yang Kai's sect. After all, even these 3 great forces did not all have origin king-grade alchemy grandmasters. Among these 3, only Heng Luo Chamber of Commerce and Purple Star each had 1, while Sword Union had none. After leaving the floating continent, this old master didn't have a place to settle down. How about this old master go to your high heaven sect? This old master doesn't have any requests, just the title of honored guest elder will allow this old master to enjoy the care of an origin king-grade alchemist and occasionally refine a few spirit pills for this old master. Heh. His words were very direct and honest. Yang Kai laughed. If a character like Senior wants to join high heaven sect, how could this junior refuse? So it's settled then? Guizhu's eyes lit up. Although he knew that Yang Kai would probably not refuse him, when he heard Yang Kai agree, Guizhu was still very happy. This way, he would be able to get close to an origin king-grade alchemist. In the future, as long as he could find the necessary herbs, he wouldn't need to worry about not having someone to help him refine pills. Wouldn't it be simple to improve his strength? Guizhu could already imagine the future. He would definitely be able to break through to the peak of the Third Order Origin King realm in his lifetime and stand at the top of Shadowed Stars territory. It's settled then. Yang Kai nodded happily, but I'm afraid this honored guest elder position doesn't quite match Senior's identity. How about Supreme Elder? Guizu's body shook as he stared deeply at Yang Kai, unable to calm his heart for a long time. Although he had never joined any great force, he knew the difference between an honored guest elder and a supreme elder. Although honored guest elders were also worshipped by the sect, it was only in name and had no real power. Supreme elders were different. Supreme elders were existences with real power, and strictly speaking, their authority was extremely great, only second to that of the sect master. In some great forces, supreme elders were supreme existences who could easily mobilize the sect's materials and disciples. Their words were absolute orders and disciples had to follow them even if they had to go through water and tread on fire. However, being an honored guest elder also had its benefits. When the sect encountered an unresolvable danger, honored guest elders could choose to help or not depending on their own situation, giving them a high degree of freedom. On the other hand, supreme elders had to advance or retreat with the sect, living or dying together. Generally, only the person with the highest seniority in the sect had the qualifications to assume the position of Grand Elder. Guizu hadn't expected that Yang Kai would directly give him the title of Supreme Elder. Although the risks he would have to take were greater, the benefits and treatment he would receive were far better. Young boy, since you treat this old master with courtesy, this old master will naturally treat you with sincerity. And whatever this old master says now is nothing but empty words, please wait and see. This old master will make sure your sect's disciples willingly accept his position as Supreme Elder. Luo Lan gave a hollow laugh, realizing that this void crack might really be very small. At that moment, the seven-colored radiant light quickly struck again, covering the entire Medicine Valley. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived behind Yang Kai, passed through the void crack, and pushed forward like an angry horse. "200 years was enough for an Origin King Realm Master to do many things. If they made another breakthrough during these 200 years, their lifespan would be greatly increased again. Could be said that, if a longevity pill was refined and sold to the right person, it would definitely fetch a sky-high price. Everyone only had one life, who dared not cherish it. Even those Origin Kings who were far from reaching the end of their lifespan would want to keep a longevity pill for emergencies. This was a spirit pill that could be passed down from generation to generation like a family heirloom. Yang Kai thought about all kinds of information about the longevity fruit and longevity pill in his heart as he carefully collected the three fruits, ensuring that his harvesting technique would not cause any loss of medicinal efficacies. Only then did he carefully seal them in a wooden box and throw them into his space ring. After obtaining this harvest, Yang Kai was in a good mood and continued to explore the surrounding area. Sure enough, no one came to this area, so in the following time, Yang Kai continued to harvest and earn a lot of spirit stones. Half an hour later, when the seven-colored radiant light struck again, Yang Kai found a nearby void crack and entered it, searching for space spirit crystals in the void. After estimating that it was about time, Yang Kai returned to the Medicine Valley. This process repeated many times. Sure enough, Yang Kai did not waste any time. Not only could he harvest spirit medicines in the Medicine Valley, but he could also collect space spirit crystals from the void crack. Alternating between the two, Yang Kai's harvest was greater than anyone else's. Sure enough, making things convenient for others is also making things convenient for oneself. Yang Kai secretly sighed. At that time, if not for Luo Lan's reputation, he would not have chosen to enter the void crack to hide. If he had not made such a choice, he would not have found such an efficient way to use his time. It was this unintentional move that allowed him to reap huge rewards for his efforts. Time passed by, and Yang Kai did not know how long he had been in the Medicine Valley. He shuttled back and forth between the void crack and the Medicine Valley, collecting more than 200 space spirit crystals and nearly 100 sets of spirit grasses and herbs. Such a harvest could only be described as terrifying. One had to know that whether it was space spirit crystals or herbs, their value was enormous. What's more, Yang Kai was certain that the others had not gained as much as he had. However, since separating from Luo Lan, he had not encountered anyone else, which was quite strange to him. At a certain moment, Yang Kai followed a strange medicinal fragrance to his left. Suddenly, his expression changed and his brow furrowed. His divine sense detected the existence of other people nearby, and there was more than one, actually 3 of them. Yang Kai's expression became solemn as he pushed his Saint Chi through the shield formed by his golden blood threads and sent out a dozen punches. Asterisk ping 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 ping. Asterisk Saint Chi surged as a violent power sputtered out. The light of the golden blood thread shield suddenly dimmed for a moment before it was shattered and transformed back into a golden blood thread, but the purple light did not diminish in the slightest and continued towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai's fists collided with the purple light and fused together. Yang Kai let out a muffled groan as his body flew backwards involuntarily, his face slightly pale as he flew through the air. Although he did not suffer any serious injuries, he had suffered a small loss this time. Staring at Zilong, who was rapidly approaching the Enlightenment flowers, a look of shock appeared on Yang Kai's face. It was not like he had never fought a second-order origin king before. Luo Hai was a second-order origin king in the past. However, Zilong gave Yang Kai a feeling that he was much stronger than Luo Hai. This person had definitely reached the peak of the second-order origin king realm. Perhaps as long as he had some opportunities, he could break through to the third order. The sect master of Purple Star deserved his reputation. Zilong was also surprised. While flying towards the Enlightenment flowers, he turned his head and glanced in the direction of Yang Kai with a look of surprise on his face. He hadn't expected that Yang Kai would actually be able to block his attack. Although Yang Kai's appearance was somewhat disheveled, and that was only his last blow, not his full strength, it was still amazing that an origin-returning realm master could accomplish such a feat. This little brat is a bit strange. Zilong thought to himself. Even if Zidong had been the one to resolve his attack just now, he would have been seriously injured at the very least, but Yang Kai was only slightly pale and seemed to be completely fine. Is he even better than my son? When did such a young man appear in Star Territory? What kind of old monster had nurtured this person? In an instant, many thoughts flashed through Zilong's mind as he stared at Yang Kai with a dignified look. At that moment, a loud exhalation suddenly came from the depths of the Medicine Valley. "Father!" Zidong, who was following behind Zilong, called out in a low voice with a hint of panic in his voice. The 7-colored radiant light was coming. From what he had experienced before, the speed at which the 7-colored radiant light covered the Medicine Valley was terrifying. If he did not find a place to hide in time, he would definitely be enveloped by it. As such, Zidong could not help feeling a little flustered. At this moment, Zilong was less than 1,000 meters away from the Enlightenment flower, even closer than Yang Kai was to it. The fruit of victory was within his grasp. But even with such a short distance, it was difficult for him to even move. A look of struggle and hesitation flashed across his face, but in the end he didn't dare to act rashly. Clenching his teeth, he grabbed Zidonglai and found a nearby space crack to hide behind. Not far away, Su Wei, who had been rushing over, also stopped and hid behind a void crack. Yang Kai did the same. Fortunately, there were many void cracks in this territory, otherwise, the three of them would have had to take the risk of rushing towards the Enlightenment flower and hiding behind it. For a time, the three of them remained motionless. Their distance from the Enlightenment flower was almost the same as before, forming a triangle with the Enlightenment flower in the middle. Silently, the 7-colored radiant light spread across the entire Medicine Valley. The whole world seemed to fall silent at this moment, with only the faint sound of breathing audible. A good opportunity. As soon as Z Long landed, his eyes lit up as he shouted. He did not expect that he would arrive so quickly. Only Meng Tong was here, and from the looks of it, Meng Tong obviously did not know what to do. Since he was the first to arrive, Z Long naturally would not waste any time, and his figure flickered as he tried to approach the immortal tree. "Brother Z, you're not slow." At this moment, a voice that caused Z Long to feel apprehensive rang out, causing him to stop and look towards the source of the voice. Soon he saw Ni Guang flying over with Shui Yu and landing not far away from him. "Senior Ni, you're also very fast." Z Long snorted lightly, feeling extremely unhappy. If Ni Guang had come a little later, he would have been able to obtain the treasure first. Puppets that were not made of flesh and blood did not fear the corrosive power of the 7-colored radiant light, but the omnipresent pressure was not something these puppets could easily resist. At this rate, it would not be long before their puppets were crushed to dust by the 7-colored radiant light. Thinking of this, Z Long did not dare to be negligent. He repeatedly urged his mind to control the python puppet to move forward. In an instant, the python puppet's speed increased greatly, and after expending a great deal of effort, it finally arrived in front of the immortal tree. At the same time, Ni Guang's humanoid puppet also arrived. A fiery look flashed across the eyes of the two as they simultaneously issued a command to their respective puppets. The next moment, the python's body coiled up and wrapped around the entire immortal tree, then exerted its strength fiercely, as if it wanted to uproot the immortal tree. The humanoid puppet's approach was even more clear-cut, grabbing the roots of the immortal tree with both hands and exerting its strength. The two second-order origin kings obviously had the same idea. As a result, the python puppet was tightly wrapped around the humanoid puppet, preventing it from exerting its full strength. A series of cracking sounds rang out from the two puppets' bodies. Geizu's eyelids twitched as he watched this scene, feeling a little annoyed. After all, he had a share of the 3 drops of immortal source liquid, so Ni Guang and Zi Long wanting to kill the chicken to get the eggs without even giving him a heads-up really annoyed Geizu. But soon, Geizu began to laugh strangely because he found that these two puppets were not cooperating at all and were instead restraining each other's movements. What was more, the seemingly fragile immortal tree was completely undamaged under the two puppets' frenzied attacks, as if it was brand new. "Senior Ni, have your puppet withdraw first," Zi Long suddenly shouted. "This king guarantees that if we can obtain the immortal tree, he will give you a share." As he spoke, Zi Long continued to activate the python puppet's power. Ni Guang sneered, "Brother Zi, why don't you have your puppet withdraw first? This old master can also guarantee that if we can obtain the immortal tree, he will also give you a share." The two looked at each other and saw the distrust in each other's eyes, snorting coldly at the same time and ignoring each other. The situation suddenly reached a stalemate. At that moment, Kong Fa of Galaxy Ridge also rushed over, and when he saw the situation in front of him, he could not help being stunned for a moment, unable to figure out what was going on. After seeing Su Wei though, Kong Fa's face lit up and he immediately went to meet up with him. After all, these two were jackals of the same tribe. They liked to collude with each other the most. But as soon as his feet moved, Su Wei shook his head at him without leaving a trace. While controlling the humanoid puppet to compete with Zi Long for the immortal tree, Ni Guang was secretly paying attention to the situation on Shui Yu's side. Soon, he gritted his teeth and shouted, "This old master can't obtain it. You won't either. What do you want to do?" Zi Long's complexion changed. Ni Guang answered him with his actions. As soon as Ni Guang finished speaking, the humanoid puppet suddenly burst out with a dazzling light. Immediately after, it spread out its limbs and fiercely attacked the giant puppet. A series of bangs rang out as the python puppet was struck, sending sparks flying everywhere. "Ni Guang!" Zi Long roared, his face extremely fierce. His puppet had already suffered great pressure inside the 7-colored radiant light and had suffered great damage. Now that it was being attacked by Ni Guang's humanoid puppet, the damage was even greater, and its limbs were becoming somewhat sluggish. "Ha!" Ni Guang laughed heartily. Taking advantage of the moment when the python puppet was repelled, he controlled his humanoid puppet to grab one of the leaves that contained immortal source liquid and pulled it off with a fierce tug. In the next moment, the humanoid puppet rushed out without looking back. However, as it rushed out, the puppet's body began to crack like a broken bellows and its parts began to fall. Obviously, this puppet had reached its limit. Its speed was also becoming slower and slower, as if it could collapse at any time. At the same time, Zi Long's python puppet was not faring much better. After being attacked by Ni Guang's humanoid puppet, its limbs were also becoming sluggish and its body parts were also beginning to break apart. Seeing this situation, Zi Long suddenly realized that the situation was hopeless and could only settle for the next best thing. Controlling the python puppet to bite a leaf containing immortal source liquid and then having the puppet return. The two puppets, one in front and one behind, each brought back a leaf from the immortal tree and a drop of immortal source liquid. Ni Guang and Zi Long quickly rushed forward, not daring to lower their guard in the slightest. If at this time, Geizu suddenly tried to snatch them, everything they had done would be for naught. On the other side, Shui Yu's situation was gradually becoming more and more precarious. Ni Guang was unwilling to give up on the immortal source liquid and the immortal tree's leaf he was about to obtain, so he could only leave Shui Yu to its own devices for the time being. He believed that with Shui Yu's heritage, it would not be so easy for Su Wei to kill it. Shui Yu did not fail to live up to his expectations, producing a variety of powerful artifacts and secret techniques. Even its companion monster spirit, Xie Ji, had been mobilized, but there was still an entire great realm gap between Shui Yu and Su Wei, so the situation was still worrying. Little thing, you dare bully the weak? Too much. Gui Zhu, who had been standing silently to the side, suddenly sneered and stretched out his hand towards Su Wei. Chapter 1794. The battle between Zi Long and Ni Guang broke out in an instant. Su Wei and Kong Fe stared at the terrifying scene in the sky with trembling eyes, deeply feeling their own powerlessness. As Origin Kings, both of them were existences with eyes far above their heads, but in the end, they were only First-Order Origin Kings. Now that they saw the full power of two Second-Order Masters, they immediately understood the gap between them. If Ni Guang and Zi Long were so strong, what about Gui Zhu, who was on the same level as them? The two of them couldn't help glancing over at Gui Zhu. Gui Zhu didn't have any intention of attacking them and instead just stood guard by Yang Kai's side. He also knew his priorities and knew that protecting Yang Kai was the most important thing right now, so how could he have the leisure to deal with Su Wei and Kong Fe? As long as these two didn't move, Gui Zhu wouldn't find trouble with them. However, Gui Zhu didn't expect that Su Wei's life and death were no longer in his hands but rather in Zidong's. Seeing that his father and Ni Guang were fighting, Zidong naturally wasn't willing to let his father fight alone, so he immediately sent a message to Su Wei and asked him to meet Gui Zhu head-on. Su Wei's face was extremely ugly as he cursed Zidong in his heart. However, due to his soul brand being controlled by Zidong, he didn't dare to resist and could only turn to his old friend. Rolling his eyes, Su Wei calmed down and quietly sent a message to Kong Fe. "Brother Kong, an opportunity has come." Kong Fe frowned. "Brother Su, the opportunity you speak of, don't tell me you want to take advantage of this opportunity to attack that little brat?" "That's exactly what I was thinking. Do you want to die? That old man beside that little brat seems easy to deal with. Even if you and I join forces, we might not be his opponent." Kong Fe was taken aback. "Brother Kong, riches and honor are found in danger. Since you and I reached the Origin King realm, have we ever broken through again? Do you want to remain in the First Order for the rest of your life? The Immortal Tree is a supreme treasure that many people can't even hope to see. If we miss this opportunity, this Su will never feel at ease. In any case, no matter what you think, this Su is determined to fight. Even if we lose our lives, so what?" Su Wei sincerely tried to mobilize Kong Fe, trying to pull him into the water, otherwise, he wouldn't dare provoke Gui Zhu alone. Kong Fe's expression turned solemn. He seemed to be deep in thought. Seeing that there was hope, Su Wei quickly struck while the iron was hot and said, "You and I don't have to fight that old fogey head-on. Now that Ni Guang is entangled with Zi Long, we only need one of us to distract that old fogey while the other takes the opportunity to capture that little brat. As long as we can capture that little brat, that old fogey will surely hesitate to attack." "That may be the case, but—" Kong Fe was still somewhat timid. "Brother Kong, this Su is willing to entangle that old fogey. You can take the opportunity to deal with that brat." Su Wei also didn't care too much. He immediately took on all the dangerous tasks. Kong Fe's body shook as he stared at Su Wei in amazement. "Brother Su, you," in his impression, Su Wei wasn't the kind of person who was willing to pay, so Su Wei's proposal surprised him. Su Wei laughed. "I only hope that Brother Kong succeeds." Don't forget this Su's hard work. Of course not. Kong Ifei was finally persuaded by Su Wei and quickly said, since Brother Su says so, this Kong will be too disloyal if he still refuses. This matter, I'll do it. If this Kong succeeds, you and I will split the immortal tree in half. Good. Su Wei was overjoyed, thinking that he had finally pulled his old friend into the water. His efforts had not been in vain. After the two finished their discussion, Su Wei no longer wasted any time. But what shocked Yang Kai even more was that even under such a strong force, the immortal tree was not damaged in the slightest. If it had been an ordinary tree, it would have been broken by the embodiment. It seemed that Ni Guang and Zi Long's two puppets had not been able to obtain the immortal tree not because they interfered with each other, but because the two puppets were not strong enough. At that time, even if they had joined forces, they would not have been able to obtain the immortal tree. Is it not strong enough? Yang Kai muttered to himself, his eyes flashing. In the next moment, he waved his hand and the stone mongoose Xiao Xiao appeared. If one stone mongoose was not strong enough, two should be enough, right? On top of that, Xiao Xiao had devoured countless rare minerals and was many times stronger than the embodiment in terms of strength. As soon as Xiao Xiao appeared, he received orders from Yang Kai and immediately rushed towards the immortal tree at an incredible speed. In the next moment, he rushed into the seven-colored radiant light. The light suppression came from all directions and Xiao Xiao's body suddenly released an indescribable, extremely profound power that completely offset this suppressive force. Xiao Xiao's body only paused for a moment before he continued forward unimpeded, walking through the seven-colored radiant light as if he were walking on flat ground. This is principal strength? Yang Kai was taken aback. Although his soul clone was controlling the embodiment, he himself was not affected, so he was still able to perceive the changes in Xiao Xiao's body clearly. The power that Xiao Xiao released just now clearly contained the aura of world principles. This kind of aura was not unfamiliar to Yang Kai. As the Star Master of Shadowed Star, Yang Kai could experience the world principles of Shadowed Star, and although the principal strength coming from Xiao Xiao was weak, it was clearly genuine. When did Xiao Xiao comprehend this kind of power? Yang Kai furrowed his brow. The stone mongoose didn't have high sentience, so it was impossible for it to comprehend world principles on its own, so this kind of power must have been formed by external forces. When did this happen? Thinking quickly, Yang Kai suddenly understood. Back on the Ore Star, Xiao Xiao had swallowed the remnant star source of the Ore Star before falling into a deep slumber. At that time, Yang Kai thought that Xiao Xiao's strength would increase greatly after he woke up. But later, it turned out that Xiao Xiao hadn't changed much, so Yang Kai was a little disappointed. Now, it seemed that it wasn't that Xiao Xiao hadn't changed, but rather that he hadn't shown this change. After swallowing the remnant star source of the Ore Star, Xiao Xiao had clearly gained a trace of principal strength, and although this trace of power was weak, it was more than enough to compete with the seven-colored radiant light. The power of laws, that was an extremely profound power. While Yang Kai was lost in thought, Xiao Xiao had already arrived next to the embodiment, stood opposite it, and immediately stretched out his hands to grasp the immortal tree. In the next moment, a low growl came from Xiao Xiao's throat. Its two little eyes were wide open, and it looked like it was using all its strength to do so. Asterisk Kacha. Asterisk underground, there was a faint sound of something shattering. As for the immortal tree that had remained motionless all this time, it was finally shaken by this unparalleled power. The frail sapling was being pulled out at a subtle speed, and the ground suddenly cracked with crisscrossing fangs one after another. As the immortal tree was pulled out, the world energy aura in the surrounding area began to fluctuate violently, seemingly causing an incredible chain reaction. After once again withstanding the power of the purple lightning, the divine bird no longer dared to remain in place and quickly turned its huge body to return. It also felt the repulsive force of this star's territory, so it knew what to do to ensure its safety, so it decided to return to its nest immediately. Oh, the divine bird is returning. Up ahead, two streaks of light were rapidly approaching. It was Zilong, Zidong, and Su Wei who had gone ahead. When Zidong saw the huge body of the divine bird, he exclaimed thoughtfully, "Was that little brat killed by the divine bird?" Zilong did not answer and instead stared at the purple thundercloud above the divine bird's head. When he felt the terrifying power contained in this thundercloud, his face could not help changing as he quickly changed direction to avoid the divine bird. However, the divine bird was furious at this moment, so how could it allow Zilong to leave? Opening its mouth, it spat out 7 colored radiant light toward Zilong's trio. Zidong screamed, his face pale as paper. Zilong and Su Wei, on the other hand, wore dignified expressions as they hurriedly used their own methods to dodge. By the time they managed to avoid the attack of the 7 colored radiant light, the divine bird was already 1,000 kilometers away. Chapter 1804. Lu Guichen, who had just escaped with his life, felt his whole body go limp as sweat dripped down his back. "If you dare lie to me, I'll make sure you can't die even if you want to." Yang Kai stared at Lu Guichen coldly. "Speak, what is the secret of this continent?" Lu Guichen's face went pale as he gulped, looking at Yang Kai pleadingly. "Can you make these 2 monster beasts retreat first?" 2 pairs of blood-red eyes stared at him, causing his heart to beat wildly. The feeling of his life hanging by a thread was really uncomfortable. Yang Kai coldly snorted and issued a command in his mind, causing the tail-crowned snake and star king turtle to immediately transform back into golden blood threads and fly back to Yang Kai. Lu Guichen couldn't help wiping his cold sweat as he glanced over at Yang Kai and found him looking at him impatiently, quickly asking, "If I tell you this secret, can you guarantee you won't kill me?" "Your life isn't as valuable as you think. Killing you or sparing you is only a matter of thought for me, but whether or not the secret you tell me is valuable depends on it." "Valuable?" Lu Guichen's body shook. "This king, cough cough I can guarantee with my life that you will definitely be interested in this secret." "Enough nonsense. Keep talking and you'll die." Yes. Lu Guichen trembled and said quickly, If I tell you that this continent has given birth to its own source strength, would you believe me? Source strength? Yang Kai's eyes lit up as a terrifying light flashed across them, quickly asking, "How do you know?" "I've been here for several dozen years." Lu Guichen smiled bitterly. "One day a few years ago, while I was in retreat, I suddenly felt that the world energy fluctuations on this continent were somewhat abnormal. At the same time, a vague message came from underground, so I thought it was the birth of some kind of treasure. So I released my divine sense to investigate, but how could I have known that as soon as I released my divine sense, it would be pulled in by that strange force? At that time, I saw a dazzling light that gave me the feeling of a newborn baby. It was curiously trying to get in touch with me, but when I wanted to see what was going on, it rejected me. At that time, I didn't know what it was. After thinking about it carefully, I felt that it should be the origin of this continent. As for whether it is, I don't dare to be too sure." He quickly finished his story and then looked at Yang Kai anxiously. "Origin? Huh, it seems that it really is the origin." Yang Kai laughed loudly. Back when he was on the floating continent, he had inadvertently entered the depths of the floating continent's underground. There he saw a ball of glowing energy. The energy was enormous, but Yang Kai didn't know what it was. At that time, his strength was not high, and he was powerless against that ball of energy. However, he was careful and attached a strand of his psyche to the ball of energy. It was thanks to this thread of thought that Yang Kai was able to accurately pinpoint the position of the floating continent and return here. At this moment, hearing what Lu Guichen said, Yang Kai immediately determined that it was definitely the origin. If the floating continent was a small cluster of stars, then what Lu Guichen and he saw back then was the origin of stars. It was just that the stars Yang Kai saw back then were still growing and had not been fully born, while what Lu Guichen saw was the origin of stars that had just been born. If this floating continent was left to its own devices, in the future, it really might have a chance to become a real cultivation star. "Young man." Lu Guichen looked around and didn't know how Yang Kai planned to deal with him, so he asked nervously, "Stay there and don't move. If you dare to act recklessly, you're dead." Chapter 1810. More than a month later, Yang Kai looked at the large piece of land in front of him with a joyful expression. Centered around the immortal tree, he had already planted many spirit grasses and medicines. Regardless of what condition these spirit grasses and medicines were in before, under the nourishment of the immortal tree's vitality, they had all survived. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, a medicine garden had been formed. It seems that if I collect anything in the future, I can plant them here and take them when I need them. And this way, I can preserve the integrity of the medicinal efficacies to the greatest extent. Yang Kai was very happy. Next, Yang Kai scattered countless saint crystals and crushed them into powder with his fist, allowing the energy contained in these saint crystals to fill this space. Although the immortal tree's vitality was abundant enough to nourish this mysterious small world, the spirit grasses and medicines planted here required world energy to grow. In the future, saint crystals would not be a small expense. After doing all this, Yang Kai took some time to investigate the situation of the floating continent. During this time, Yang Kai had been inspecting it from time to time and found that the refinement process of his embodiment was extremely smooth. Now, the entire floating continent had shrunk by more than half, and the stone giant that stood in the void had revealed its towering body, giving off an extremely strong sense of oppression. However, the further it progressed, the more difficult it became to refine it. Yang Kai did not know how the embodiment would eventually refine the floating continent. Yang Kai did not worry too much about this though, and instead sat cross-legged in the middle of the medicine garden, sniffing the medicinal fragrances coming from all directions before taking out a round, rolling object from his space ring. The shocking void beast's monster core. The reason why he agreed to go to the severed world with Luolan was because he wanted to obtain the shocking void beast's monster core. Shocking void beasts were ancient exotic beasts. They were naturally proficient in the Tao of space and were of unimaginable help to a cultivator like Yang Kai who cultivated the Tao of space. In the severed world, Yang Kai had refined the void vortex, greatly increasing his mastery of space force. If he could obtain the mysteries contained in the shocking void beast's monster core, he would definitely be able to advance further. Taking out the purple origin furnace, Yang Kai summoned his conflagrated knowledge sea. He wanted to refine the shocking void beast's monster core into a spirit pill. This way, he could maximize the amount of energy he absorbed from the monster core. Fortunately, there was an ancient pill recipe recorded in the True Alchemy Enlightenment scripture, which was refined using the shocking void beast's inner core as the main ingredient. Moreover, he didn't lack other supplementary materials. Time flew by. Another 2 months passed. Outside the floating continent, Guizu's brow furrowed tightly, his expression not very good as he muttered to himself. Ever since he had sensed Yang Kai's advancement, he had never felt anything like it. More than 3 months had passed. But until now, Yang Kai did not appear either. Could it be that he really failed to advance and died under the baptism of the heaven and earth energy? That would be the envy of the heavens. At this moment, Guizu stood alone in the void. His heart was restless. After all, he had just promised Yang Kai to join High Heaven Sect and was preparing to use the abilities of High Heaven Sect's Origin King Grade Alchemy Grandmaster to improve his strength. If Yang Kai died, where would he go to find High Heaven Sect? He didn't even know where High Heaven Sect was. Enai Guang and Shui Yu had already left 2 months ago. Chapter 1812. Zidong's eyes were completely sluggish. He stared blankly at Yang Kai, who was in high spirits, using one killing move after another, and Kong Fa, who was dodging in distress, unable to accept the reality of the situation. In a head-on battle, Yang Kai was actually suppressing Kong Fa. In less than 30 breaths of time, Kong Fa had been beaten to the point where he could only parry without being able to fight back. Zidong could see that Kong Fa's movements were sluggish and his Saint Chi was not circulating smoothly. Obviously, this was because he was being suppressed by Yang Kai's territory, so although both of them were peak first-order Origin Kings, in Yang Kai's territory, Kong Fa was not his opponent at all. It was only a matter of time before he was defeated and killed. Considering all this, Zedong's heart clenched as he suddenly felt a sense of foreboding. Su Wei was already dead, and if Kong Fa died as well, Yang Kai's next target would be him. Two Origin Kings were not Yang Kai's opponent, so how could he, an Origin-returning Realm Master, resist? As for his father, he was being entangled by that ghostly guy at the moment and seemed to have trouble dealing with him. What should I do? What should I do? Zedong's face was blank as he had no idea how to deal with this tricky situation in front of him. At that moment, from the vortex where Yang Kai had appeared, another figure walked out. As soon as this person appeared, he cried out, "Young man, wait for me, I can't find my way, huh? I came out? I, Lu Guichen, am finally free. I don't have to stay in that damned place anymore." This person seemed to have not yet figured out the situation in front of him, and as soon as he appeared from the vortex, he laughed wildly, as if there was no one around. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? Zedong stared at Lu Guichen, who had suddenly appeared in amazement, vaguely feeling that he was familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen him before. Whatever, I'll capture him first. Since he's with that bastard, he must be one of his people. Zedong thought to himself. His figure flickered as he arrived in front of Lu Guichen, grabbed him by the neck, and said coldly, "Don't move. I want your life." Lu Guichen was taken aback and broke out in a cold sweat. How could he dare to act rashly? He nodded repeatedly, "I won't move, I won't move. Friend, if you have something to say, please don't get agitated." Saying so, Lu Guichen glanced over at Zedong. At this moment, Lu Guichen's eyes suddenly flashed with surprise as he called out, "Young master? Are you the young master? You called me young master?" Zedong was stunned. "Who are you?" "Young master." Lu Guichen knelt down midair and hugged Zedong's thigh with both hands. As if he had seen a close relative, tears and snot flowed from his eyes. "Young master, this subordinate is Lu Guichen, Purple Sand Star's Lu Guichen from several dozen years ago. This subordinate was fortunate enough to meet Young Lord once and even received some pointers from Young Lord. Young Lord, have you forgotten? Lu Guichen?" Zedong frowned, feeling that this name was very familiar, but he couldn't remember it for a while. However, seeing the other party's joyful expression, he didn't doubt him. After a moment of contemplation, Zedong suddenly realized, "You're from the Lu family, a descendant of Lu Li?" Yes, this subordinate is." Lu Guichen saw that the other party finally remembered him and was overjoyed. This subordinate thought he would never see anyone from Purple Star again in this life. "Unexpectedly, I was able to see young master's face as soon as I escaped. This subordinate is truly fortunate." "So it was you." Zedong confirmed that the other party was really someone from his Purple Star, his expression relaxing slightly as he nodded, "Stand up and speak." Seeing Yang Kai's attack fail, Kong Fa felt a little more confident and snorted, "Little friend, do you really want to kill me? You and I meeting is fate, don't be so ruthless." "Shut up." Yang Kai's expression remained unchanged as he waved his hands again and again. "You think you're safe just because you have a turtle shell? Watch how I break your tortoise shell." Asterisk chi 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 chi. Asterisk more than a dozen huge moon blades flew towards Kong Fa one after another, causing Kong Fa's face to change drastically as his eyes filled with horror. Pushing his Saint Chi, he poured all of his strength into the resounding Emperor Bell. The sound of the bell grew louder and louder as the bell-shaped light curtains suddenly became much brighter. Asterisk hong 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 hong. Asterisk the moon blades slammed into the resounding Emperor Bell's light curtain, causing it to tremble violently as if it would shatter at any moment. Asterisk kacha. Asterisk finally, a sound that sounded like a death knell entered Kong Fa's ears. He shuddered and stared ahead with wide eyes, only to see that a crack had appeared on the protective light screen of his Imperial Bell. This crack spread out at an extremely fast speed, and in the blink of an eye, the light curtain was riddled with holes. With a loud bang, the resounding Emperor Bell's defense finally broke. "Little friend, please spare me." Kong Fa's face went pale as he cried out. Yang Kai's expression remained cold as he condensed his several dozen golden blood threads together, transforming them into a golden sword that followed closely behind the moon blade, flickering slightly before disappearing. In the next moment, Kong Fei's body stiffened in place. He lowered his head and looked at his chest, only to see a bloody hole. Through that hole, he could see his shattered heart. His vitality rapidly faded as everything in front of him turned dark. This old master actually. Before Kong Fa could finish speaking, he completely lost all signs of life. Yang Kai stretched out his hand and collected the resounding Emperor Bell, throwing it into his space ring without even looking at it. At the same time, he also took away Kong Fa's space ring. "You're next." Yang Kai turned around and stared coldly at the shocked Zidong before waving his hand lightly and sending out a burst of energy towards Zidong. Zidong was horrified. Although Yang Kai's blow seemed casual, he knew that it was not something he could easily resist. After all, this was the blow of an Origin King Realm Master. In a moment of desperation, Zidong didn't even hesitate to grab Lu Guichen's neck and throw him forward. "Young Master." Lu Guichen was still immersed in the joy of seeing Zidong again and never expected such a thing to happen. By the time he reacted, he was already halfway to his destination. A strong wind hit him, and before Lu Guichen could make a sound, his entire body exploded into a bloody mist. "Boy, you're quite ruthless." Yang Kai looked at Zidong sarcastically with a mocking look on his face. He was also quite surprised that Zidong would do such a thing to resolve his attack. This Purple Star's young master was already rotten to the core. He didn't kill Lu Guichen on the floating continent, nor did he prevent him from leaving the floating continent through the space corridor with him, mainly because Lu Guichen had provided him with some useful information before. Yang Kai didn't deliberately help him, nor did he deliberately target him. Lu Guichen's life and death depended on his own fortune. It was laughable that after this guy escaped from the floating continent, he was schemed against by his own young master. Yang Kai estimated that he would die with grievance in the Yellow Springs underworld. "But you still have to die." Yang Kai chuckled. Zilong's face was livid, but after reprimanding his son, his expression gradually softened as he nodded. "Rest assured, Father will seek justice for you. Just stay in the soul-sustaining bowl. When we return to Purple Star, I will find a way to reconstruct your body." Yes, Zidong was overjoyed and his figure flickered before disappearing. Zilong then carefully put away the soul-sustaining bowl, turned around, and stared coldly in the direction of Yang Kai. No matter what, this little brat must die. Even if he had to suffer serious injuries, he would kill him here. Such a person, if left alone and allowed to grow, would become a terrifying existence. "Brilliant Purple Star River!" Zilong suddenly shouted as the purple light around his body quickly receded. Instead, a shocking long sword condensed from purple light appeared in his hand. With this purple sword in hand, Zilong's momentum sword and an aura that caused hundreds of millions of creatures to tremble filled the air. He stared coldly at Yang Kai and shouted, "Boy, no one can save your life today. Will you die if you don't talk big? My life is right here. If you have the ability, come and take it yourself." Yang Kai showed no fear and took a step forward. Zilong did not say a word as his sword flashed and his entire body was wrapped in sword light. In an instant, he crossed a few kilometers and appeared directly in front of Yang Kai. "Exile." Yang Kai stretched out his hand and slapped the space in front of him, instantly disintegrating and forming a black hole. Zilong's momentum was so fast that he almost rushed into the black hole, scaring him so much that he quickly turned around and dodged. Moonblade. Yang Kai's voice sounded again as a series of crescent-shaped shockwaves flew toward Zidong, as if they were free. Zidong was suddenly forced into a panic and could only jump up and down, not daring to touch these attacks condensed from pure space force. Who knew what the consequences would be if he touched them? Yang Kai laughed loudly. "Old dog, you can't even get close to me, yet you want to take my life? Try again in your next life." Guizhu watched from the sidelines, cold sweat dripping down his back as he secretly sighed to himself, each generation producing a new talent to replace the old. He boasted that he was an Origin King Realm Master and that there were few in the Star Territory who could make him feel fear, but when had he ever seen Yang Kai use such strange means? Putting himself in Zilong's shoes, Guizhu knew that if he were Zilong, the situation would not be any better as he would be forced back by Yang Kai and unable to get close. Purple Chi from the east. Zilong suddenly roared as his already terrifying aura soared once more. In the next moment, he did not dodge and instead slashed out with his sword towards the countless moon blades. This sword strike could be described as shocking as it contained Zilong's endless anger and martial Tao, causing even Guizhu's eyelids to jump. Without even thinking about it, Guizhu threw out his 10,000 soul banner and transformed it into a black curtain that blocked in front of him and Yang Kai. Hong long long. The moon blades were cut apart, and even the 10,000 soul banner was unable to resist the light of this sword strike. Zilong's attack arrived directly above Yang Kai's head, as if it would tear him apart in the next moment. Yang Kai grabbed Guizhu and with a single step, space force circulated around his body and he disappeared from where he stood. When he reappeared, he was already behind Zilong unsheathing the dragon bone sword. Yang Kai poured his Saint Chi into it and the green dragon bone sword suddenly transformed into a giant dragon that swooped towards Zilong. Guizhu also took action leisurely, forming a series of seals with his hands as a huge ghost head suddenly appeared.